Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Newington Town Council regular meeting of Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. We are starting a bit late this evening due to an executive session that was prior to this, so we will call the meeting to order at 7:17 p.m. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance if you're able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll move on to roll call, please.
Councilor Annis. Here. Deputy Mayor Budrako. Here. Councilor Camillo.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Mankey.
Here.
Councilor Hale.
Here.
Councilor Page.
Here.
Councilor Retta. Here. Mayor Del Pino.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to approval of the agenda. I believe we have one addition. Councilor Mankey.
If we could just add under 4 number presentations, add a presentation A, update from the police chief. So
Okay.
A would be, then Camp Avenue would be B, and town vehicles would be C.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Donahue. Any discussion, councilors? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Sorry, I'm just clicking on my technology here, getting in. All right, we will move on now to presentations. The first is what we just added, which is an update from our Chief of Police, Chief Clark. Welcome, Chief.
Okay, this is on. I provided you with a quick summary of the activity from January 1st up until April 30th to give you an idea of the calls for service and the increases that we're seeing at a time when obviously our staffing level is down 20% with 6 vacant officers and 4 in the academy. So as our activity level is going up, our staffing level is going down. So not a good situation, but there is some gains that we've seen and others not so much. When you look at 2023 to date, and when I talk about 2022, it's for the same time period. It's not the entire year. It's for that same period of time from January to April. And burglaries are down slightly, 15 in 2022, 13 in 2023. Larceny is probably our biggest increase, and a lot of that has to do with the shopliftings on the Berlin Turnpike, in Stop and Shop on Fen Road, Target, Walmart, Price Chopper. And what we're trying to do to curtail that is we're having officers do location checks where they're stopping, parking out in front of the businesses, walking around just to be seen. It's hotspot policing. You've identified a problem area, and just by parking there, showing a presence will help reduce crime. And you're always concerned about displacement. Everybody knows in the news about the car breaks in Berlin and how they're putting in extra patrols. And the concern that we have when they do that is they're just going to push them out of Berlin into the nearby towns, Newington being one of them. So that's something you always want to be concerned with and take into account when you start putting patrols together. But I can tell you larcenies are our biggest driver of crime right now for one reason or another. And a lot of that has to do with shopliftings. Car breaks are actually down compared to 2022 for the same time period. Last year we had 94. We're down to 75 this year. The other night we had 2 people that were arrested for car breaks, and it all had to do with a citizen. Citizen saw something out of place, contacted the police. We had an officer that was Johnny on the spot, was able to get there, detain 2 individuals, and as it turned out, they were doing car breaks. So all because of a citizen being alert to the fact that something was out of place dialed 911 and caused a police response, which resulted in arrest. So, my message to the public is if you see something, you're not bothering us, just make sure you call, because you never know when something's going to develop into what it did that night, which was an arrest for two individuals breaking into cars. And I can tell you that if they were caught that night, they were probably responsible for others. So it's important that the public contact the police when they see something out of place. Stolen cars are up. Last year we had 12. This year we had 27. Robberies, 5 last year, 6 this year. Arrest warrants served, 214 this year compared to 182 last year. Excuse me. And what we're seeing is rearrest. In Connecticut, we have what we call the paperless rearrest warrant network. And basically it's for people that fail to appear in court, get arrested, make bond or released on their signature, and they have to go to court, or they violate probation. It goes into this network and they get rearrested. So we're seeing an increase in rearrests where people have already been arrested and either haven't gone to their court date or violated their probation. The 2 individuals that we caught the other night, both violated their probation. So they had been out, they'd been arrested, they were out with stipulations in their release and violated those release. So, I would say that when we talk about car breaks and the increase in crime, it's not a law enforcement issue, it's a criminal justice issue. Law enforcement, police departments are only one cog in that wheel. There's a lot of others that are involved. So when you're dealing with folks that were out on bond or out on probation and you're rearresting them, that's a problem, because it's just as difficult as our job is. There's nothing more frustrating than arresting somebody twice, 3 times, 4 times for the same crime that they've already been arrested for and are now out and about committing additional crimes. Criminal arrests were up 30% compared to last year at this time. We were at 271, we're now at 340. Calls for service are up and criminal arrests are up. And what we're seeing as a result of that is our patrol time is shrinking. When you put patrols out there, what you try to do is you break it up into thirds. So a third of the time they're doing proactive patrol. Third of the time they're doing the reports. The third administrative task, would that be traffic enforcement, things of that nature. So you try to break it up so they have some time to do proactive patrols, but that time is shrinking because of all the administrative tasks that they have to do. And it gets difficult when you're trying to curtail crime with patrols and they don't have the time to designate for those proactive patrols. And on the other, to increase patrols would result in overtime, and we just don't have the staffing to increase patrols. So it's becoming more and more difficult, more and more challenging. Traffic stops are down slightly. We had 1498 last year, 1241 this year. Focusing on DUIs, speeding, aggressive driving, red lights. So we're putting more emphasis on that. What we're seeing an uptick now in is people that just aren't stopping. Officers are trying to make traffic stops or stop somebody involved in a shoplifting, and they're just taking off. And because we have a no pursuit policy, unless it's a violent felony, they're letting them go. Last year at this time, we had 37. This year we have 42. The biggest jump too, along with larcenies, is location checks, crime prevention location checks. We're having our folks, go to those locations that have been identified high crime areas or for traffic violations, and they're putting some time and effort into curtailing that. 924 last year, almost 2,000 this year. So it was a huge jump. DUI arrests are down. We had 38 last year, 25 this year, and a lot of that has to do as you're being pulled in different directions. we want the officers to be in the residential areas and some of the commercial areas at night to stop car breaks. So the time isn't being spent on the main roads to deal with the DUIs. If they spend time on the main roads looking for DUIs, then the residential and the commercial areas are getting neglected for the car breaks. So they're being pulled in two different directions. Drug investigations, 11 last year at this time, we're up to 21 this year. So we continue to see an increase in our calls for service, and that's only, it's going to increase even more with all the development that's going on in town. You know, with the staffing that we're dealing with, it's just making for a very challenging situation, and we're doing the best that we can. I would say that we're probably going to reach over 1,000 arrests this year. I don't think we've had over 1,000 arrests since like 2015. So it's, you know, we're doing the best we can, but we're very limited in what we can do because of the staffing that we have available to us. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Chief, we had talked about staffing in terms of like increasing the size of the police force. But the reality is that the size of the police force doesn't necessarily help if we can't fill the positions we have, right?
Correct.
I just want to clarify what
Yeah.
staffing means in terms of what we're looking at. It's really the,
People say that you got to do a better job of recruiting, and recruit who? There's nobody out there. We have 6 openings now. I have one officer from Virginia that wants to come up, who's in the final stages of his background, and I have 5 applicants. That's it. And we've talked before where when I took the test in 1985, there were 500-600 people taking the test in 1985 for 3 openings. I have 6 openings and I have 5 applicants. That's how serious this problem is. And it's going to get worse.
Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yes, a few of us have questioned when we're talking about economic development and primarily, let's face it, here in Newington, it's housing, it's not retail or whatever. With the possibility of, 3,000 to 4,000 new residents within the next 2 to 3 years, what staffing implication will that? I mean, assuming you were able to hire staff, what would you?
What I would like to see is, I mean, we're at 52. You've added another officer for next year's budget for 53. I think with the development and the calls for service that we're seeing, it's important that we get to 5860. I think we're at a point now with the development, the increased calls for service, that it's important that, department grow along with that development. I kind of put some projections together. I don't have them with me. What, the development as far as an increased calls for service would do to us. I don't have that in front of me, but there's gonna be. I've given some estimates, but it's gonna have an impact. And, I think over the years we've been understaffed. And I think it's important that we get to that 5860 mark. But how do you get there when there's nobody there who wants to do the job?
Well, unfortunately, that's, thank you for that information, because at least when I've questioned people involved in the process, it's, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. It's no impact to schools, no impact to this, no impact to that. And even the fire department, I think at some point will be impacted. But my second question is, you talked about proactive patrol shrinking because of increasing administrative tasks. Now, is that due to legislative requirements and paperwork? And I mean, what does that mean?
Correct. I mean, there's a host of things that the recent risk protective orders, the red flag law, as you will, is putting huge burden on us. when that law first came out, I think we were one of the first departments that really started doing it. And there was a period where we led the state in RPOs as far as affidavits. And so that puts a huge burden on us. We had one day where there were 6 officers on overtime that were subpoenaed to testify at a hearing over in court over a risk protective order. I've talked with the legislative delegation to try to get them to make some changes. One of the things that I had asked for is when you do a risk protective order, it takes 2 officers to request an affidavit for a risk protective order. And basically, for a search warrant, you need 2 police officers to draft a search warrant. Risk protective order, which is not a search warrant. You're not seizing the weapons. You're basically putting somebody on a list to prohibit them from having access to weapons. It takes 2, but yeah, I can do an arrest warrant to arrest somebody, take their freedom away, put handcuffs on them, and take them to a booking process and perhaps to jail. And it only takes 1 officer. It doesn't make sense to me. You're taking somebody's liberty away, and you only need 1 officer. But yet, for a risk protective order, when you're just having them be placed on a list, you're not arresting them. You're not seizing any articles or any weapons. They're making you have 2 officers. So they were going to change that. There's a proposal, I guess, up at the legislature where they would change that. So it would require only 1 officer to do a risk protective order.
So it's in front of the legislator now. If
And one of the other
we could
things
get
that,
if we could get the bill and maybe write, or at least individually, some of us can write in favor of that.
and then one of the other things that I was looking to change, but they didn't change, is when they have the hearing has to be in the judicial district of the person's residence. So, because we have a lot of motels on the Berlin Turnpike, if we do a risk protective order for somebody that is staying temporarily on the Berlin Turnpike and they live in Bridgeport, the officers have to go to court in Bridgeport, not New Britain. And the other question is what happens if they live in Springfield, Mass? Does Springfield, Mass court recognize Connecticut law, which I don't think they do. So I asked that they have the hearing in the judicial district of the department that is doing the risk protective order, and I don't think they're gonna change that.
Okay, so, but if we contacted you, or if one of us contacted you for the house, do you know the bill numbers or no?
No, I can get those to you though. Yeah, I have them. Yep.
Send it to me, that'd be great, thank you.
Counselor Menke?
Yeah, you reported that the car break-ins are down this period?
Correct. As of April 30th.
I can speak from experience that my car was broken into Friday night, and I didn't report it because I think,
Well,
me, like a lot of other people, just.
you raise an excellent point.
So I would suspect that the break-ins are more than they were, just people are just saying, what's gonna happen? I'm not, why bother reporting it as long as there's no physical damage?
But you raise a great point. When we talk about crime statistics, the FBI does theirs, the state does their, that's reported crime, There's a lot of crime that goes on that goes unreported. So the statistics that you're seeing is based on reported crime. And we all know that not all crime is reported. So when you see those numbers, you have to inflate that, knowing that not everybody, like Counselor Menke, who had his car broken into, is going to report it. That happens. So we have to be a little cautious by what some of the numbers saying, knowing that they're going to be inflated.
I'm also concerned that as I think about it, and I probably should have reported it, but I didn't. I think most of it is getting desensitized to this. It's just a break-in, and not that you, the police, but the police and the justice isn't going to do anything anyway. So why do I got to go through this hassle to find nothing's going to happen anyway? Or if they do arrest somebody, he'll be back out on the street before the officer gets back out on patrol again. So I think a lot of people are just saying, well, why bother? It's just, and I think that's a quality of life issue. I think that's a dangerous precedent to set, that we just we'll just accept it and live with it.
But I mean, that has been an issue that we've talked about in the past at our council table, is the fact that these folks are, and you mentioned it earlier, that those repeat offenders, they're folks that are, if they do get caught, they're put right back out on the street again.
Correct. You know, you talk about
Newington.
traffic enforcement, and this is what the state's attorney in New Britain told when we had a meeting with all the police chiefs. During the COVID period, they had not prosecuted a single traffic ticket in 2 years. Why do you think people are driving the way they do?
Correct.
Because they got in that habit.
Consequences hold people in check. And if there are no consequences, people aren't held accountable, then they're gonna do what they want to do. And that's what you're seeing. If there's no consequences, what's the point? And there was a traffic forum with the Newington legislative delegation about a month or so ago. In planning for that forum, I called over to the Centralized Infractions Bureau, which basically is the agency that takes in the infractions, all the tickets that are given. And I had asked if they could provide me with data on the number of tickets that were sent over, the number of them that were prosecuted, the number of them that were offenders paid their fine, and the number of them that were nollied and not prosecuted. And they never got back to me. Now, I'm not claiming but I would think as a chief of police, and I made that request, you would think out of respect for the position, you would provide me that information. And I called over there and they said, send it in the form of an email. And I did what they asked.
Yeah.
I sent it in the form of an email and I never got a response. So are they afraid to say? I don't know. Did they lose it? I don't know. But, you know, as a concerned citizen, I would like to know, you know, what those outcomes are, because they're important to know when you drive around town and people are driving aggressively, speeding. You know, it's just, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
Counselor Ennis?
Thank you. Chief, I have a question. It's probably dictated by the contracts, but is there any positions that we have officers doing in-house that a civilian could do to get them back on the roads?
We tried the property officer. We had a civilian property officer. We tried to fill that, and we had 5 applicants. That's it. None of which had any property room experience. What we would like is to have a detective that has experience because of the safeguards, the accountability, the inventory of a property room. But to your point, I think, you know, down the road, I think we're going to have to, if we're not able to hire new officers, I think we're going to have to do that. I mean, do we stop going to medical calls and send, whether it be an EMT working out of the police department to stabilize the patient until AMR arrives or NDA arrives? I mean, we do about 3,500 medical calls a year. But if we stop doing medical calls, that will cost lives. I assure you that. I was at a call a number of years ago where a gentleman had a heart attack and the officers there were there for almost 15 minutes doing CPR on this gentleman waiting for the ambulance to arrive. So our officers are usually there 2.5, 3 minutes providing life-saving measures. And if we take them out of the fold, that's going to create a serious gap and it's going to put people at risk. But again, if you can find a civilian to do that instead of an officer, because they're being tasked with a lot of other things, I think, you know, it's a new day. I think we got to look holistically on the services that we're providing and what could be used and, you know, done by a civilian. It's just, if we're not able to increase our staffing, then we're going to have some very difficult conversations in the services that were being provided. There's no other, there's just 6 openings, 5 applicants. And that's how critical the situation is now.
And it's not for lack of trying. We've done
No,
the drop
it's-
plan,
it's-
we've done an incentive sign-on bonus.
There's just nobody there, you know,
Right.
and, you know, we talked about the youth academy, you know, back when I first started, we did a youth academy, it filled up within a week or two. You know, we were offering again, the Rotary Club, our friends at the Rotary are gonna fund it, and we had 2 applicants. So there is just no interest in policing. Everybody wants to be a fireman. And I actually started off as a fireman.
Any questions or comments, counselors? I would just say thank you to you and the force. Please let your folks know that this council
Yes.
stands behind our police department. And we're
Definitely.
here to hear whatever suggestions and requests you all have that we can help with. So we stand here for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Not
you.
bad for last minute. Thanks. All right, next on the agenda this evening is the Camp Avenue roadway maintenance presentation. Councilors, you'll remember that we had discussed this a while ago now, and we had asked that the town complete a study to look at the Camp Avenue milling and paving project that was before us at the time was a straight milling and paving. There were residents that had requested us consider widening the street, and we had asked that a study be done to look at all the different possibilities. So we have with us today, Rob Hillman, and
This is Paul Brand from GM2,
welcome.
of course. I was gonna give a quick backstory on it the best I could, because this was one of Gary's projects, but the mayor did a pretty good job. So if you want me to do it, I'd be more than happy.
Whatever you've got, go for it.
Pretty much just to reiterate what the mayor had said. Back in 2021, we had scheduled to, excuse me, mill and pave Camp Avenue. Letters were sent out to the residents notifying them of our plans. There were some residents that raised some concerns about us simply milling and paving the road. They were hoping to have it actually widened back to what we believe the original width was 28 feet. So we decided to put it on the shelf for a little while. They had other concerns such as emergency vehicles. If 2 vehicles were parked on either side of the road, difficulty of an emergency vehicle getting down the road in the case of an emergency. So the town manager at the time decided to put no parking signs on the south side of the road. And that appeased some residents, didn't appease others. So we were asked, the town was asked to do a study on it. And Paul did some test pits and did an analysis on it. Gave us some options as to what we could possibly do, whether we mill and pave the road, widen the road, one side or the other, the entire road, or reconstruction, reclamation. Those are all part of the analysis. But that's where we are now, and just going to turn it over to Paul so he can kind of give you an overview of the analysis, and then we can take any questions.
Thanks, Rob. As Rob said, my name is Paul Brand. I'm a civil engineer, project manager with GM2 Associates. We were brought on by the town at the end of the summer. We were asked to perform essentially an analysis, alternative analysis for what the options might be for repaving Camp Avenue. We started with 2 or 3 options. Eventually, we got up to 6 options that we took a look at. They vary in the amount of work that would have to be done. The base alternative is a simple mill and overlay of the existing roadway. As Rob said, currently the road is 24 feet wide. There is evidence that and notes from residents that originally it was 28 feet wide. At some point, it was repaved. Rob has looked up some numbers back in the mid 80s. That must have been when it was reduced to a 24-foot wide width. As you know, the town standard is 26 feet for residential roads. So the current road is substandard to town standards. So we were asked to look at the cost implications of all 6 alternatives and put together a very rough cost estimate, very early opinion of cost for each of those alternatives. I want to stress this is not an engineering design. We weren't tasked with engineering the road itself. So these are based all on very conceptual ideas. The cost estimates are based on very rough numbers. Milling and overlay again is the first alternative that would be the least invasive. Simple 2-inch mill of the pavement and replacement. That alternative does have some. It is the least expensive at just over $100,000. It could be done under the town's current repaving program. However, you won't get the lifespan out of the pavement that you would for a full depth replacement. Typically for a mill and overlay, you're looking at 10 to 15 years of lifespan for the pavement. That existing road has been out there for at least almost 40 years. So I'll say you've got your money's worth out of that pavement so far. A full replacement, you typically would get 25 to 35 years. But moving down from the different alternatives, 3 of them were resurfacing. The other 2 of resurfacing mill and overlays were to widen 2 feet on one side and 4 feet on one side of the road. So a 26-foot option and a 28-foot option. The existing width does have concerns from a safety standpoint. When you do have 2 cars parked on either side of the street, that narrows the opening to 8 feet, which is obviously can't get very many first responder vehicles through that. Anytime that the cars are parked adjacent to each other on opposite sides of the street, you have a weaving issue for the cars or for the vehicles that make it difficult and unsafe. So a widening would increase safety. A widening to 26 feet would increase safety a minimal amount. A full 28 feet would be preferable. However, again, those have cost implications. The report includes various cross sections of each alternative. I'm going to skip right back to table 1, which is the alternatives cost. As I said, alternative 1 was around $135,000. Once we get past the mill and overlay and we have to start actually digging into the ground and putting in new pavement base, that's where things start to increase in cost. So widening 2 feet, we'd be in the upwards of over $500,000. Going 4 feet with a widening, we'd be around $650,000. Now, if we do a full depth replacement, that's basically tearing everything out and starting from scratch. Widening to 26 feet would be around $840,000, and widening, doing a full depth 28-foot wide road would be about $1 million. Alternative 4, sort of in-between option, that's a reclamation. The reclamation would essentially grind up the existing pavement in place with the existing base. Any excess material would be removed from there, and then new pavement would be put on top. So that's kind of an in-between alternative. One thing we didn't look at was whether or not you could do widening with a reclamation. You could do widening with a reclamation. You could potentially use the material that you're skimming off the top, the excess material, as new base, but it would require some additional excavation and new curbs as well. So that alternative, called 4A, would be probably somewhere in the range of similar to alternative 2, around $500,000. So
And that would widen it to what?
to 26 feet. Yes.
Thank you.
You could also do the 4-foot wide option widening option as well. Again, the cost just goes up based on the width that you want to do. So some of the other implications just to keep in mind with the widening, for a portion of the road, the existing utility poles east of Lloyd Street on Camp are closer to the roadway. West of Lloyd, they're at least 4 feet away. So if you did a 4-foot widening, those utility poles would be outside the width. Once you get past Lloyd, they're more like 2.5 feet. So you could be looking at utility relocation there unless you're able to widen on both sides. So widening on both sides is a tricky task because you have some serious grade separation from one side of the street to the other. Widening in general is going to have impacts to a number of properties whose driveways are already fairly steep. So once you widen the roadway, you're pushing out those curbs. You're basically diving down away from the center of the road And so those driveways are gonna have to get steeper to meet that new edge of road. So you could be taking driveways that are already 8 to 10% in slope, which is fairly steep, and making them 12 or 13% in slope. So those are some of the implications of that kind of driveway impacts. You also have property impacts such as on people's lawns. When you drive down Camp Ave, you'll notice along the south end of the street, south side of the street, there's a number of existing retaining walls that support some of these driveways. A lot of those retaining walls are less than 10 years old and have implications for, they would be within the widening of the roadway itself. Towards sort of the end of towards Lloyd Street, there are houses along the north side of the road that would make widening on that side very difficult because the driveways look to be about 13-14% steep. And the condition of widening on that side would make it even worse. The other thing with widening on the south side would be preferable because there are, as I said, there's evidence that was 28 feet at one time. Part of that evidence is there's catch basins that are set off 2 to 4 feet away from the existing gutter line of the roadway. So widening to that side would make sense because you wouldn't have to relocate all the drainage basins if you did that. Any questions?
All right, counselors. Counselor Page?
Yeah, just to clarify, did you say when it was originally narrowed, were 2 feet taken equally from each side?
It doesn't appear that way. It looks like based on the evidence, so it's been a couple months since I was out there, but my recollection is the catch basins along the north side of the road are still in line with the curb, whereas the catch basin on the south side of the road are set back from the curb 2 to 4 feet or so. And again, we did test pits along the road to try to find where that old back of pavement was. And we actually found no evidence of the pavement behind the existing curbs. We did, I think, 12 or 13 test pits. And only, I think, 2 of them actually found pavement behind the curb. And even then it was only maybe a foot or 2. So when they repaved the road and narrowed it, they likely saw cut out the old pavement. That's probably the most likely explanation for that.
Deputy Mayor Draco? Yes, and all these alternatives that require, potential relocation of utility poles, private landscaping, lawns, irrigation, driveway regrading, is that included in your approximate total cost?
It is.
Okay.
So that's what, these are kind of I guess you would say worst case scenario for these options, given the limited data, not having engineering plans. We try to be conservative with our estimates.
Okay. And in terms of reclaiming, let's say 2 feet on the south side or whatever of the lawn, is that like, that's taking from a property owner's?
Yeah, so we would basically from the edge of thing where the curb is,
Right.
you have to dig out an additional, actually 3 feet because you want to overbase it when you're doing your road. So you would actually have to dig out an extra 3 feet, base it, and then depending on how we decide to reclaim it, mill and pave it, then you would have to pave it and then you would come and mill and overlay it.
So then the the property owner's property would then be reduced by a certain number and then
2 feet.
by
No.
2 feet.
So I will say that the work would be within the right of way. So the right of way is still
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry, yes. it
Yeah,
would be
so
in
the right of
way.
way, the town owns the right of way where this is, but yes, people consider that their lawns and their property, but so.
Okay.
What we've encountered when we were doing test pits is there's a number of houses along especially the south side that have irrigation systems that are right up against the existing curb. So that's a cost that we consider a minor item or a contingency item. Those kind of things will have to be relocated at the cost of the town as well.
Now the setback though with the new, if it was expanded, would the right of way then change or not? No? Okay.
No, there would be no need for that.
And do we normally, Rob, just do milling and repaving?
Yeah, so basically our paving program is strictly milling and paving. We've done some reconstructions in the past. I think the last major road we reconstructed actually was a reclamation, was Lewis Street. And that was about 15 years ago. We did Judd Ave, which is a very small road. So if the council were to choose to do a reclamation or a large project on Camp Ave, this is probably just something that we would not be able to handle based on the aggressive milling and paving program that we currently have. You know, we're dedicating almost 3 months to the preparation of the roads and then the milling and then the paving. So if this would probably be something we'd have to contract out.
But the pavement reclamation, that is not standard for what we normally would do.
No, we haven't done a reclamation, like I said, that Lewis Street. is the
Okay,
last
and we
one.
wouldn't change our standards for the other, necessarily for the other streets in town. We're still gonna stick with,
Yes, yeah, that's reclamation is it's pretty basic.
okay.
So,
So even though we're saying, it would increase the life from, 15 to 25 years versus 10 to 15,
Yep.
but the rest of the roads we do in town is still 10 to 15.
correct, yes.
Okay, and then just one more question, if you don't mind. Now, if we did this, or if we chose anything other than option one, which is just the standard milling and repaving, will that significantly set back the schedule for other roads that we wanted to do in town?
If the town wished the highway department to do the project, yeah, it would set us back probably a year, if not more. Well, I would say a year, because it would probably have to dedicate the entire summer to just one road.
Okay.
So those 5 or 7 miles that we've been trying to aggressively do last year and this year, we'd be pushed back, and that would.
Set us back about a year.
Significant.
But then if we did the option where we couldn't do it,
Yeah.
financially, it would set us back. So either way, we're
Yes,
being
yes,
set
yeah,
back.
we're gonna-
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, so we either lose a year of our milling and paving program
Your
or,
funding.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Menke?
I just had 2 questions. One, where you talked about this, the steepness of the driveway, I guess that concerns me. So that would be up to the homeowner then, if they wanted to get a less of an angle, they'd have to get some excavation to change it. That wouldn't be on us to do, that'd be on them to do.
Typically, when we alter the road in any way, we, as the town, would go and rectify the driveways to make it so that the grade is acceptable. So yeah, that would be part of the whatever choice we have.
Would that result in major grading for the front yard?
Front yards, driveways.
Because I'm sure you can't lower the driveway and have the rest of the lawn
Yes,
up here,
yes.
because without putting a wall in or
Exactly.
some kind of
So
a.
you're talking the wall or regrading, however far you go back with the driveway to make that grade acceptable.
Okay.
You'd have to retaining wall and regrade the lawn area, correct?
And I seem to recall it when this came up last time that Town Manager Chapman at the time had sent us a list, and I tried to look for it today, and I couldn't. I must have it someplace. But of all the roads in Newington that are less than the 26 feet, do we have a number?
So I did some numbers, so we've got 40 roads in town that are at 24 feet. 1 road that's 23 feet, 9 that are 22, 8 that are 20, and 1 that is 12, which I'm not even sure, that's Hall Court. It's a one-way road.
Oh, yeah.
It's a one-way.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah.
That looks like a driveway.
Yeah, exactly.
So potentially we could be on the hook then to do all those roads.
Yeah. Public out drive, yeah. So you're talking 50, almost 60 roads that are below 24 feet or less.
Can you send us that list again?
Absolutely.
I probably have it, and I know I put it someplace, but God knows where I put it.
Counselor Ernst?
Thank you. This is just a comment. There is a resident that's here. He could probably shed light during public participation of when it was reduced to 24 and the reasons, and he lives on the south side. So I'm hoping he'll get up and say something, because this has been his passion to try to get this street widened for a number of years. So thank you.
Counselor Rada?
Yes, just a clarification. When this came up quite some time ago, I recollect that we were told that Camp Avenue is, of the streets that are narrower than the 26 feet, Camp Avenue was the only one that had been specifically narrowed after it was built, after it was paved initially. Is that correct?
I honestly, I could not speak to that. I don't know if that would be in engineering's archives, but I do not have that information, so.
I'm just, thinking, if we're looking at, well, now we have to do this one and now we have to do that one.
Mhm.
It kind of was raised as a specific issue because that had been the 26 feet or 28 feet. And for whatever reason, historically had been narrowed. And that was really the only one. And then we could go back and kind of rectify the problem that's now been created.
Okay. Counselor Donahue?
Council Red has stolen my thunder, so I won't ask the question again.
My apologies.
I was gonna say,
Rob, what's the timeline that we have to make this decision in order for it to be determined for this upcoming paving cycle?
They're planning to start milling in July. So that gives us, I'm sure that the contractor, I mean, one road to them it's a mile of road, but it could be milled in one day and paved in 1 or 2 days. So I would say that we're by middle of June at least, to give them the opportunity to add it to their schedule.
But just to clarify, if we're doing a reclamation or one of these other proposals, we need the money in the budget to do that because there's no money in the budget to do
Right.
that.
You're talking an engineering study too, and now you're potentially pushing it back not a year, you might be pushing it back 2 years by the time between the surveys and all the studies and the final plan actually is
Take money
approved.
out of the current budget for roads to do
Right.
this road, that means other roads aren't gonna get done. Is what I think.
Yes.
And we still have to do the engineering study and all that.
And I mean, just to put it in perspective, I mean, if you want to go 28 feet full depth reclamation, if you want to do do that project, you're talking $1 million and our road budget is $1.5 million. So to dedicate that kind of money to one road, I understand there's a lot of concerns with that road, don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of other roads that still need to be addressed too. So. This is
The funds.
Deputy Mayor Budrako.
At some point, I mean, I don't know how we're gonna go about this, and I guess it's a decision, but either narrow down the alternatives or whatever, and whether that's done here, but at some point, I think because of the number of neighbors that did come out previously, there's got to be some kind of informational neighborhood meeting at least, or some maybe another representation of this. And even if a decision is made, just to be able to explain why the decision was made, the cost impacts, the time or whatever. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable if a decision was just made by the 9 of us without getting, not necessarily input, although that would be great, but informing or having a conversation with the neighbors and telling them why prior to, us signing contracts to get stuff done. Was my 2 cents.
Just keep in mind, that road is, that road was last done in 1984. And as I mentioned in the CIP meeting, it is, we all know, we've all driven up it, it's in horrible condition, to put it bluntly. And I'm not rushing any decision. It's a major decision when you're talking about $1 million. But it's something that I would put on the forefront. Because if the decision is made to go with alternative 6, you're talking another 2 years, and now there's more money that's going to be outlaid just to maintain that road, pothole patching, repairs and stuff like that, because we can't just let it go.
I'll say the longer you wait, the first option becomes less available to you as well, because the pavement is already to a point where once you start milling it, it's already broken up. So once you start milling it, it's going to rip up everything underneath as well. So you're not just going to get the 2 inches on top, you're going to start getting big chunks out. And there's already sections of the roadway that'll probably have to be cut out and redone in full. I'm talking size of this table kind of size, but that's something to think about as well.
Loretta?
Yeah, just one other question. I'm trying to wrap my brain around 26 versus 28 feet. And I'm thinking at it in terms of public safety issue. What's the impact of 26 versus 28 feet in terms of getting vehicles down that road in the event of an emergency, which we know is always a possibility at any moment.
I'll say 26 feet, you probably can't open the road back up to parking on both sides of the street. 28 feet becomes much more feasible. It's still tight, but it's, at least you have 8-foot parking on either side with a 12-foot wide lane in the middle, which is large enough for pretty much any fire truck or, ambulance to get by. So 26 feet, you keep moving that lane in the center in. So you probably still have to have restricted parking on one side of the street with 26 feet.
And then that would mean having it patrolled and having that enforced. I'm looking at you. Add that to one more thing to the list, right?
You good?
Okay, yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Counselor Donahue?
I'm just reading. What is BCLC?
Bituminous concrete lip curbing.
That's what I thought.
John,
Okay.
you didn't know that?
Well, I had to come to you to cantilever stuff.
All right, so the purpose for tonight was to get the presentation, have the information, and we'll have to discuss at what point we put it back on the agenda for further discussion.
I do have one quick question.
Yes.
Based upon the numbers that you provided in this, that was last October. What type of escalation do we currently have based upon the contracts from the state that we have for asphalt? What's that overall impact right now? And I know that's 2 years out, but
Yeah, so if we were able to use the VIP contract, the cost of pavement alone has gone up, I think, 18%. That's just the pavement alone. So the bitumen, so I don't know that you could add just blanket statement, but add 20%. I can't speak to that, but the potential is there for that. And that's if we can use the VIP contract to pave. If a contractor does the prep work, we may not be able to use the VIP contract, so we may have to go out and bid for that. And for a sole project, I highly doubt that they're going to meet those VIP numbers, which is the state contract.
Okay. Everybody good? Mhm. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
for the
Thank
information.
you. Appreciate it.
What's the question?
Next up this evening is the town vehicle fleet review. This had come up during our budget discussions, and we had talked as a council about just needing to better understand our vehicle replacement, our current vehicle fleet, ages and replacement schedules and that kind of thing. So we had asked for a presentation this evening. James, do you want to add anything to that?
no, you actually covered it quite well. Over the past few years, we've sort of noticed an escalation in the amount of vehicles that we seem to be holding on to as part of our town fleet. And it doesn't matter which department it's in. One of our big pieces is we tend to transfer most of our police vehicles into the normal town fleet for office use. So those are things we're trying to look at, because that has a direct impact on our equipment reserve, which allows us to purchase those new vehicles. So if we're holding on to them longer, we're not selling them when we have a higher value on them, and we're not recouping those funds back into there. So in that aspect, we did ask Mr. Hillman to put together some information that you actually have a copy of that at your desks regarding the fleet vehicles for each of the department areas. The fire department is here this evening. They have their own separate presentation, but they are included in this package, and the chief is here as well to discuss his actual vehicle fleet as well, specifically his admin as well as his patrol.
Okay, so we're gonna start with Rob and then bring the fire department up after he's done.
We want to let the chief finish
Oh, the
his.
chief,
They've
I'm
got
sorry.
they have a
Chief
full
also.
presentation, so
Got it. So
We'll-
Rob
we'll
and the
give them
chief to
the-
start.
the wrap up.
Got it. Thank you.
So as chief, basically what I did to try and simplify things is this being the first meeting. I know the CIP, you could have looked in your CIP book, but I understand that if you're not educated in that, school in that, it's kind of difficult to read. So what I did, and it also includes equipment. So we're talking about vehicles here. So what I did is I pulled out all the vehicles from the CIP for each department, and I broke it down by vehicle number. It says vehicle equipment, but it's vehicle number. And based on our RTA system, which is our tracking system for our vehicles. We try to assign every vehicle to someone, so therefore we have an accounting of it. So I broke it down, if you want to start with the fire department. I broke it down with the name for the individual, the year of the vehicle, the make, the model, and the mileage of the vehicle. Now, keep in mind, you might look at some of these vehicles and say, oh, wow, that vehicle's 15 years old. It's only got 2,000 miles on it, 20,000 miles on it. Those are generally vehicles that are specific to something. Some of our plow trucks may not have a significant amount of mileage on them, but in an emergency, we need them. So they may sit for substantial time over the summer, but in the winter months, you're going to put miles on them. And if we don't have them, obviously, it creates an issue. So what I did, I broke it down by department in that way to give you an idea of how they're all allocated. And currently, we've got about 145 vehicles for all of our departments, which is up about 20% from the 15 years ago. I had asked Hermes, our mechanic foreman, to be here with us tonight, but unfortunately he had some personal issues to attend to, so he's not here. He is much more educated in this time. And if you have any questions that I can't answer, I will feel free to send them my way, and I'll pass them on. But since I have the chief here now, why don't we just jump to his section. And
So you're on board with me too. On your discussion, are we making a change on that?
no, leave it as, yes, oh, thank you, yeah, sorry, yeah, he's good with it. So what I did was, I broke it down by police admin and police patrol. So as you can see here, these are all the vehicles, these are those that are assigned to them. These are vehicles and these are the mileage. So I just wanted to get, like I said, just wanted to give you an overview, an introduction to the vehicles that we have, the mileage that are on them, and how they're allocated. And you can see by the chief's list that most of these vehicles are allocated to individuals or patrol, meaning that these vehicles are used on a regular basis. I can't say that for sure. I mean, that's the chief's decision where he wants to allocate the personnel. Just keep in mind, as the fleet manager, we manage the program. So when a vehicle comes up for replacement, we meet with the individual department head and say, hey, you have a patrol vehicle, an Explorer that's coming up. Where do you want to go with this? Do you want to go with an Explorer again? Do you want to go with a Tahoe? These are the prices. This is the money that we have. And at that point, we make a decision as to what vehicle we are going to purchase. And once that vehicle is purchased, it goes into their fleet, and they designate it to whomever they choose to. All we do is manage the program and assist them with the purchasing of the vehicles, and then obviously outfitting them and whatnot. So once they go to the designated department, at that point, it's up to them as to who they choose to allocate that to.
And typically, the patrol vehicles remain in patrol. And a lot of those vehicles are pushed into the Board of Ed. So you see the security vehicles at the different schools. Those are old police cruisers that been renovated, and the board uses them for security vehicles. Obviously, for us, the mileage is such that you wouldn't want those as primary vehicles on patrol should you get in a pursuit. Not that we do a lot of pursuits, but the cars are older, they're looser, there's more mileage on them. The security officers for the Board of Ed, their driving is very limited. It's probably pretty much, coming to town hall, driving around the schools. Obviously, they're not responding to calls or anything like that. So they're not going to put the stress on the vehicles that a police officer would. The admin vehicles, those are the vehicles that really we're the feeder system for the town. So those vehicles come into the police department, and then once we're done, they get pushed out into town service. I would say, I think some of those vehicles that are in the town have to be 15 years old, some of those cars, because they started here at the PD and then they're now in the town service.
Yeah, so the admin vehicles get pushed down to the town engineer, the building inspector, because the admin vehicles don't have the miles that a patrol vehicle would have on them. And therefore, they're still viable. And, you know, we do make that determination. Hermes and our mechanics, they do look over the vehicles and say, yes, this vehicle is gonna add some value for a few more years, have some value for a few more years. If the vehicle is kind of, its lifespan is kind of used up, then, you know, we will certainly send it to auction. We don't want to keep a vehicle in our fleet that's gonna be in the shop all the time and add expense to us. So every vehicle is evaluated. Any vehicle that is kept, I should say, is evaluated by Hermes.
And typically, we do about 3 patrol vehicles a year, and I think for those that you've been on for a while, remember that those vehicles for patrol were in the operating budget, and then they were moved into CIP. So typically, 3 patrol vehicles a year, and then 2 to 3 admin vehicles a year. The patrol vehicles, you get primary use out of them for probably two years. Don't forget, those vehicles are being run 24/7. So the mileage goes up rather quickly. So usually for 2 years, those vehicles will be a primary vehicle. And then as they get older, they go in what we call a fleet that used at construction sites. You'll see those. Those are older vehicles that have an increase in mileage on them. So we'll put them there. Long are the days when I worked patrol where you used to bring your own car to the construction job, not the cruiser. But because traffic is the way it is, you know, the Berlin Turnpike, Cedar Street. And to be honest with you, the contractors really are hiring the officer for the lights on the vehicle than they are for the officer, because people have a tendency to slow down because of the lights. But those vehicles that you see out on the construction sites are the older vehicles. And I can tell you, there are times when you come into the back lot during day shift and there isn't a single marked vehicle in the parking lot, because they're either on a patrol or they're out at construction sites doing traffic duty. The admin vehicles, just so you know, there are 4 take-home vehicles for myself and the command staff. Obviously, I'm not using a lot of gas and a lot of miles, driving a mile to work. But those vehicles typically will start off in the command staff, and then they'll get pushed into the detective division for the detectives to use. And then after they're finished with them, then they go into the town fleet for use by, whether it be building, the fire marshal's office, what have you. So we're essentially, we're the feeder system for the entire town fleet, as well as the Board of Ed. I mean, obviously, we don't have school buses, but the cars, they get our cars. And they actually look better after they get them when we give them to them. So they do a good job putting those together.
Any questions, Counselor? Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Chief alluded to, you know, the vehicles for, you know, the mainline staff, those are emergency vehicles. We want to make sure that those vehicles are, I mean, most of our vehicles are in great shape anyways, but, you know, those are vehicles that you need in the case of an emergency. So to have maybe a 5 or 10-year-old vehicle or an emergency vehicle of that nature, you know, you don't want something like that. So the rotation of every, you know, 5 years is pretty much needed for those vehicles. And then if you want to go to the general government. Sorry, I'm jumping around. I apologize. Here. This is one department, a group of vehicles that actually James had asked me, you know, do we purchase used vehicles? On occasion, we do, especially if it's a vehicle that needed, such as the carpenter, the electrician, or the HVAC. You know, we did not have those positions previously, and those are not just SUVs, those are utility trucks. So we did not have the funding to go out and buy an $80,000, $90,000 utility truck. So we were able to procure those as used vehicles. And once they were purchased, they were put into the CIP. Those are the only 3 vehicles, I think, of all of these that I have listed here that are used vehicles. But you can see, once again, that pretty much all of them are allocated to someone. department heads, inspectors, town manager, and town engineer. So they are used on a regular basis. I know I'm constantly in my vehicle driving around checking things, and I know that facilities director is and everything. So these are vehicles that are used on a regular basis. And you will see, I'm proud to say that vehicle 705 is our first electric vehicle. We were able to, actually, believe it or not, it was less expensive to buy the electric vehicle than a hybrid.
Those are hard to
it was-
get too, I think. They're hard to get those boats.
Yeah, so we have the ability to buy two, but seeing as though we don't really have the infrastructure right now for multiple vehicles, where the board ed is helping us out right now and letting us park the vehicle on their premises, and they have a plug for us. So this is kind of a, I don't want to say a snap decision, but the opportunity came up. We jumped on it because we wanted to see how it worked and see how it would work out for us. So Aaron Kinkley is the proud owner, proud user of the town's first electric vehicle, first EV vehicle. So we're kind of excited about that, and we'll see how it goes. I know a lot of towns are using them for patrol vehicles and other things. We don't have the infrastructure right now for something like that, but we're moving there. So little by little, we do have hybrids, but this is our first EV. So we'll see how that goes. We'll keep you guys updated.
So Rob, in terms of replacement, we don't have a set mileage or set number of years. We're looking at really the performance of the vehicle and the repair history, or?
No, our CIP is based on years, yes. Every vehicle and piece of equipment is given a timeframe, a term of life, where it is on the CIP, and I do have a CIP.
No, that's true. It's got that grid that goes out the
Yeah,
stair
so-
step.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, the depreciation schedule, yeah, that was started, which is great. But some of those vehicles we find, because our maintenance program is pretty good, that in lieu of purchasing a new vehicle for, like I said, a department head that, such as myself, that doesn't need a new vehicle, those vehicles, when they come off, they are kept in the fleet for a certain amount of years because they're still viable. And, the money that we might be spending to maintain that vehicle is significantly less than purchasing another $45,000 vehicle. So yes, but every vehicle that we have does have a lifespan based on the CIP.
Okay. Bill DeMail is gonna be coming at us. He's got a 20-year-old vehicle.
Bill's got his own driver, so. But I mean, that next would be, we do have ambulance, but they're their own entity, basically. So we do the maintenance for their vehicles, and they do reimburse us for that. But Hermes does work with them when it comes time to purchasing new vehicles.
Are both going to be replaced by the new ambulances, or will these be?
These are staff.
We have two that we ordered for them.
I don't know.
You have three total, okay.
I would have to talk to Scott Mangan on that one. I'm not 100% sure about that. And then we have the highway and the parks department. The majority of the vehicles are allocated to an employee or staff member, and most of those vehicles are our plow trucks. Actually, the majority of them are our plow trucks. We have 14 plow routes, so you'll see that those are assigned to 14 staff members. And we do have 2 trucks. I believe they're listed as spare on this. And those are our spare vehicles, were to be that one of our frontline vehicles went down. We do have a couple other vehicles that are listed on here, such as liftgate. One is unassigned. Those are our smaller trucks, whether they be our pickup trucks or our small mason dumps that we use. We do use a couple of them for plowing in the winter months, but they're typically used during our construction season. They're for towing trailers, they're for moving small amounts of material, picking up block from our vendors, because they're much easier to drive those around than the larger trucks when they're not needed in the summer, and they are a little bit better on fuel. And then you'll see that one listed here is the jet truck. and there's another backhaul. Those are kind of specifics. One is for cleaning basins, and the other is for jet rotting pipes, drainage pipes, and the like. And those don't have many miles on them, but yet they're those can stay in the fleet a little bit longer because they're not used as much. Any questions on highway?
No, that's it.
And the Parks Department, you'll see that they're all listed as staff. Because I'm not sure exactly how Clay and Bill designate their employees, but keep in mind, they do have 13 staff members. So aside from 2 vehicles, that would take up the majority of the vehicles in their department. So and you can see the majority of their vehicles are pickups and small dump trucks, with the exception of the aerial truck and the bucket truck. The aerial truck is used more by facilities to repair streetlights and traffic lights, and the bucket truck is basically for their tree crew, for tree removals and takedowns and repairs. I mean, I'm sorry, trimming. So. Next would be the fire department. The majority of their vehicles are, larger engines. Allocated to their assistant chiefs. With Polaris and but I don't want to steal their thunder.
What's senior ride?
Like the dial, right?
Yeah.
Oh, those are the senior center. Okay.
Senior center, yes. Yep. Yeah, they do have 4 vehicles. Keep in mind, they have 2 full-time employees, 1 part-time employee, and 1
Procedural programmatic question, I guess. I'm not sure if it's for you or for you, but you talked earlier about the fact that our fleet has kind of grown in size over the years. We're up about 20%, I think you said, over the last 15 years. And that's kind of what drove a little bit of this conversation, was in terms of our overall cost for not just replacing vehicles, but for maintenance, for, fuel, for the overall picture, right? Who determines, and some of this comes to the council, but I think some of it may be town manager decision in the past, not you. But who determines when we kind of expand our fleet? Because there have been changes made to who is allowed to have a vehicle or who's assigned a vehicle, that kind of thing, over the years. And how is that determined, or what's the process for that?
that's between the department head and the town manager. So if fire, they requested additional vehicles be kept in the fleet. So they went to the town manager. It was ultimately a town manager decision as to keeping those vehicles in the fleet. But the departments request what they need, and it's ultimately done by the town manager.
I mean, even the Board of Ed, like with their security vehicles, that has gone up over the, just
Correct.
changing in staff, changing in need, that kind of thing. But all of those decisions have kind of grown our fleet over the years. So, just something to keep in mind.
We've added some employees as well. So when you add employees, especially in the fire marshal's office, there was a need to add vehicles to the fire marshal's office when we added employees. So that also helped, adds to the increase in vehicles that we keep.
Okay.
And regarding who has a vehicle, who doesn't, that actually goes back to 2007 under John Salomon. That's administrative letter number 38. And that specifically outlines the individuals and the requirements of them having that vehicle. Now, I will say, under the review that I've done so far, which has been minor at this point, it does not appear that in the past couple of years, and I'm going back at least 5 to 10 right now, that the proper sign-offs have been completed on those. So the administrative letter has a sign-off to it indicating to that individual the requirements that go along with that vehicle. It doesn't appear that those are included in the employees' personnel folders where they're supposed to be upon the receipt of the vehicle. It's something we are in the process of reviewing, and I'll actually discuss that with the new appointee at that time as well. And we'll hopefully get that process completed.
Any other comments or questions, councilors?
Like I said, my objective is just to kind of give you an idea of our fleet, where it's allocated, why it's allocated to the certain departments and where the department heads or individuals are.
All right.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Appreciate it.
All right, we're bringing up the fire department now.
Not unless there are any questions that may come up out of the fire.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Just for everyone that doesn't know, Chief Trommer, 33 years in the department. Chief Nescalada was in charge of the vehicles. 22 years, Jack?
Yeah.
Then there's Commissioner Frank in the back, if you don't know. Assistant Chief LaPierre with 30, how many years stuff? 40, and Chief Regina with 48. And they all have their own little niche in the department, and they're the head of all their own little, as you know, Chief Trommer is the head of the department. Chief Nescalada is in charge of vehicles. Chief Regina is in charge of training. Chief LaPierre is in charge of the budget. And we're missing one, Chief Stegmeyer, and he's in charge of personnel. So thanks for having us tonight. And there was things brought up in the budget, and we're glad you invited us so that we can tell you what we have, why we have it, and why we need it. We have a little presentation to start. You can click.
Clicker.
Yeah. So we got the big, red, loud, shiny ones that run up and down the street every day. What's interesting as I sit here tonight is departments have said how the town is growing and services are at a high demand. The same thing is happening with us. Our call volume is approaching numbers that we haven't seen. And it's taxing on all of us, and our equipment's starting to show it. They're a lot more money than a police car. It's taken a lot longer for us to get this stuff. But with the growth in this town, it's vital that we have the equipment that we have. We can't say to Aunt Betsy, whose house is on fire and she's hanging out of the second floor window, hang on a minute, our truck won't start, we got to get one from Weathersfield. We don't have that option. We have to know that when I go to bed at night and when the chief goes to bed at night, that our department is absolutely 110% ready to go. We don't have the option to say we can't come. Okay? Engine one. We can start by companies. It'll make it a lot easier. Engine one's a 2018 Pierce Velocity. It's our newest engine. We do have engine two on order. Also, then there's engine two, which is 2003 Pierce. That is the truck that is on order currently.
Which is due to be in like 2025, 2026, due to the build time.
Right.
This is engine three. It's also Pierce Velocity. We are very, very standardized in the department when we buy a truck. We buy it specific for the town of Newington. You'll notice in the back in the middle, there's a crossover. All of our trucks are the same except for engine four. The reason why engine four is the way it is because the firehouse is too small to put one of these trucks in. So we had to get a special smaller fire truck to fit into that firehouse. With the crossover on the top, it's a safety issue where it takes the pump operator out of the street and puts him up on top of the truck. So he's not running the pump in the middle of the road. So it's worked out great for us. We started using that about 15 years ago. And it's a godsend. The fireman can see all around, gets them out of the road, gets them safe. Here's engine four. You'll notice it doesn't have the crossover pump. in the middle, and it is a lot smaller. Engine 5, that's at Station 3 on West Hill Road. That is one of our spare engines. That's a 1995 Pierce. So that's, excuse me, that's almost coming up on in another 2 years, that'll be a 30-year-old truck. That is still currently being used now. And then the 1990 Suffolk pumper, that's another spare. That is currently housed on Maple Hill Avenue.
Now, just so that everybody's aware of why we keep this piece. This piece of apparatus is the only piece that will actually fit into our Station 4. The other ones that we currently have besides Engine 4 will not fit because of the length and size of the truck. So we keep this truck specifically for that reason, because if Engine 4 was to ever go down, this is the only piece that will fit in that firehouse. So as we talk about space needs with firehouses, that's one of our major concerns is Company 4s, and that's the reason why we talk about it.
So the average years of just our pumpers, for our frontline pumpers is 12.5 years old. That's engine 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then if you combined all 6 together, it's 18.3 years. Ladder trucks. You guys were gracious enough to give us some money, and we just got our new ladder truck. That's at Station 2. This is truck 1, which is in the center of town. It's a 2006 Pierce 100-foot ladder. This is a mid-mount ladder truck with a 100-foot bucket. Very versatile truck. This also has a pump on it. And this is the new truck 2, which will be replacing a 1997 ladder truck that's currently at Station 2, and we'll get back to that truck in a minute. But there's a picture of the new one. So it's 8.5 years because of the new ladder truck that should be going on the line shortly. Rescue 1, a 2016. This truck carries any type of rescue equipment, vehicle extrication, vehicle stabilization, hazmat equipment, different kind of booms and absorbent pads for any kind of chemical spills, fans, first aid equipment. That's 2016. And this is TAC 2. This is a 2006 Pierce. This was a commercial. This is the only truck in our fleet that is a commercial chassis, being a Kenworth chassis. So it was a little bit cheaper when we bought it. But this is due to be replaced in a few more years. This is also at Station 2. This carries a lot of rehab equipment for the firefighters at the scene, different kind of meters, and a lot of rope rescue equipment and ice rescue equipment. And the stuff that's on here is a lot of stuff that we can't fit on Rescue 1 because of what we have to carry per NFPA standards. And this also carries, if you'll see the cabinet over the rear wheel, those are all, that carries all of our Scott Pack bottles for any kind of major incident. So we have, once we use a bottle, we go over to this truck and we pull a bottle off and we can get more air and go back to work. So the average life years of our rescue trucks are 11.5 years. This is our 1994 Dodge Ram 3500. This is really the only thing that has been added to our fleet in the last, I would say 10 years, would be that trailer and the quad. That it's not a quad, it's like a side-by-side. It's right behind it if you can see it in the back. The reason for that purchase was Cedar Mountain has given us some challenges with lost hikers, different types of medical events that happened up there, and also the busway. So we can, with that, stationed at Station 3, we can hop right on the busway. If there's any kind of incident with a hiker, because there's the walking trail and everything over there. So we can get that thing right out there and have, emergency capabilities for that person.
But just so everybody's aware, the 1994 Dodge was supposed to be replaced. We took the funding for that replacement and we bought the trailer and the UTV. So we didn't, yes, we added those two, but we took the funding that was supposed to be for the Dodge and we used it for that purpose. So this vehicle only has approximately 12,000 miles on it. It's used to go in the woods. It's the reason we kept the truck. But that's the reason those other two were added. So there was really no financial issues with it because it was just the funding that was going to be used for that truck replacement.
And the other thing that it's been a great vehicle for public relations. We take it out to the extravaganza. We take it out to any, large functions that are going in town. We get a lot of PR with it where we take the quad out and it's good. It's really done a good job for us. This is Service 2. This is a 2010 Ford pickup truck. This used to be at Station 2 as one of our utility vehicles, but currently it is Chief Traumer. It's almost a year coming up. Instituted a duty officer, which you're guaranteed to get an officer no matter what time of day it is, no matter what the call is. So each person takes it for approximately a week at a time, and they have use of this truck to take it to their home and respond from their home. They don't go to the firehouse to get on their primary duty is to get in this truck, get to the scene, give us, the responders, a size up as to what we have, what we need. So it's worked out very, very well. And that's 16 years old between the two of them. CP8, I don't know how many of you have seen it. This is kept down at Station 2. This was bought collaborative with police, fire, and EMS. It's been used for a lot of DUI checkpoints. It's used for the fire department for our rehab. Cold winter night, we can have that come to a working fire. We can have the firemen go in, warm up, give them a cup of coffee, and there's toilet facilities on it. So it's worked out good, but it's starting to show its age. It's an old Winnebago. It's also a state asset where the state has come in and put numerous radios into it so that it can be used in a disaster situation. But we house it at Station 2 and it's currently still serves us very well. So a few years ago, when I became commissioner, one thing I wanted to do was to get the chief's vehicles. And I succeeded, and it's worked out extremely well. In this day and age, putting our chiefs on the street, Route 9, Berlin Turnpike, Cedar Street, in their own vehicles is just absurd. And we've heard it all tonight about how people are driving. So our chiefs are in older police cars. The chief always, you get your car replaced every, 15 years, 12 years?
It's every 8 years.
Every 8 years. And we pass them down. Currently, the 4 deputies have old police Explorers. We've already had to replace one because it was a Caprice. Deputy Chief Stegmeyer had a Caprice and the transmission blew up on it, so that had to get replaced. But
so just so that we do not get the admin cars from the police department, we actually get the patrol vehicles. So they have 100,000 plus mileage on them. So we do not get the admin hand-me-downs. We actually get the patrol vehicles, just so we're all on the same page.
And they're doing us very well, but they're beat up when we get them. So we are looking to purchase 2 new Chevy Tahoes for the command staff with ARP funds, if it's possible. Like I said, you know, our car's got 100,000 miles on it, and it's working, but it's getting tough to maintain them. For I wish we had the NFPA slide. So NFPA tells us that we should be replacing, and that's this slide. We follow NFPA. So they're telling us that we should replace our frontline engines. So engine 1, 2, 3, 4, truck 1, truck 2, rescue 1, rescue 2 every 15 years. We're keeping our trucks for 20 years as first line. And then we're bumping them down to spares for another 5 or 6. So we're keeping these trucks 25, 26, 27, 28 years. As you saw, one of our engines is a 1990. So what does that put it at? 33 years old. NFPA, and this is the standard, says after 15 years, it should go to ready reserve. After 25, it should leave. We're keeping some of our engines 30 years, 28 years. So we're definitely not abusing the system. To go out and buy a used truck, if you had a catastrophic failure of a vehicle and you were ordering a new truck, I can see buying a used truck, but with all the computers, all the technology on these trucks, you don't want to buy someone's 12-year-old vehicle because you're just going to start having more problems with them. So that's our standard. And, you know, we like to stay at a 20-year replacement plan. It's worked very, very well for us. The pickup trucks are at a 15-year replacement plan, and our chief's car and the fire marshal's car are at an 8-year program.
So we have no replacement plan for our staff vehicle. So what happens is the chief's vehicle, once it's replaced, actually gets filtered down to the staff vehicle, and then the staff vehicle gets sold at auction. So that's how we work the staff vehicle. And then twice a year, the highway garage performs maintenance on all of our vehicles. So it's performed in the spring and it's performed in the fall. It's preventative maintenance. They check the brakes, the tires, the fluids, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that needs to be replaced, it gets replaced at that point.
Our mechanic is a nationally certified fire mechanic. In order to work on fire trucks, you have to be certified. Jack, if you want to touch on that. Our fire mechanics? No, they're not certified. I thought our mechanics were certified.
Certified. You have to have experience, but there's no rule that you have to be certified.
Any of our mechanics are capable of working on fire apparatus. Rest assured.
Okay. These are the current vehicles that are coming up due soon. The chief's vehicle will be next year, and that would be a Tahoe at 58,000. The 2010 Ford F-250, that's coming up at 83,000. The TAC is coming up. What's the?
Just so that we know, so in 2026, we actually have 2 pieces of apparatus that are due in the replacement schedule. If you go by a 20-year replacement schedule, that would be TAC 2 and truck 1. The estimated cost of those right now is about 2023 cost for the rescue is 1.5 million, and the estimated cost for the ladder truck is close to $2 million. The problem is all these trucks have a 3-year build time right now, and that's manufactured across the board. It doesn't matter who you go with right now. You can't even, like, we were even at one point looking at stock vehicles. Okay, so it would be a truck that was built. It may not be exactly what you want. You may have to throw a couple things on it to save a couple bucks. Can't even find those right now. If you go under Pierce stock, there's none available. There's 0.
The big cities are buying them up. When we were at Pierce in February for the new ladder truck, Tulsa bought 7 stock trucks. No, Miami-Dade had the 10 custom ones, but Tulsa, I got pictures of them. Tulsa bought 7. They bought 2 ladder trucks and 5 engines. And it was funny because I even asked the salesman, I says, well, how come the ladder trucks are a different color than the engines? And he says, because they were stock trucks and they were happy to get them because they couldn't wait the 3 years to wait for them to order them.
So I know it was brought up in the CIP discussion that, you know, there was a town down, I think it was Clinton, that bought a used vehicle. So I talked to the chief down there and asked them what they did. They actually bought a vehicle from Texas. They bought a used vehicle, but what they did was they bought it because they had a catastrophic failure on one of their apparatus. In an intern, they bought a used vehicle, but ordered a vehicle because of how much.
3 years.
So yes, they did buy something, but it was for a short term. As soon as the new truck came in, they sold it. So that's what a lot of departments are doing. East Hartford actually just reached out to us, probably a couple months ago. They had a catastrophic failure on one of their frontline engines to see if any town around us in the Hartford region had an apparatus that they could sell or get rid of, just so that they could get their engine back on the line. New Britain last year actually had 3 vehicles go down. They had an engine, a ladder truck, and actually 2 engines, I'm sorry, a ladder truck. One got in an accident, one had a motor issue. They again reached out to all the surrounding towns to see if anybody, we actually offered one of our trucks, but at the last minute they backed out of it, just so that they had something to use. They were shorter, and this is what's happening across the industry right now, that you just can't get apparatus. So we just wanted to put this slide out there just to say, hey, we got to think about what we're going to do, because with 3-year build times, we actually have to start 3 years in advance, or otherwise you're going to be way behind. So we just got to think about those things. That's why we put this slide here today.
Just going off of this for a minute, just so you know what's going on around us. Berlin just recently bought last year a new tanker at the tune of about 950,000, and they're currently in the process. They're going to be taking delivery around Christmas time for 2 new engines at the tune of $980,000 a piece, and that's Berlin. Rocky Hill, they went out to referendum and replaced the whole fleet. Every truck, every staff car, it was a referendum for $6 million. And they replaced every fire truck in every firehouse.
But what they did, what they did was they went with a smaller fleet. They reduced the size.
They reduced their size of their fleet.
Okay.
And they went with much, so instead of like a 100-foot ladder, they went to a 75-foot ladder in certain houses. So instead of having 2 rescue trucks, they went down to 1 rescue truck, which is actually because of their manpower issue, really what it comes down to. They're down to about 55, 60 guys. Where our department, we're at 130, we can man more apparatus. They can't. They went to smaller stuff because of that reason. Plus, I hate to say it, their town isn't blowing up like we are. I mean, our town is development everywhere. So we just got to think about those things too.
Next one. So as you know, this is what we're very proud of. The police department has the accreditation process, which nationally recognizes them. We have our ISO certification at a class 3. We're extremely proud of it. But Chief, if you'd like to take it from here on that.
Yeah, so what we did about 6 years ago, we went for our ISO class. We were a class 3 then too. We went from a 4 to a 3 then. Within that time frame, within the last 6 years, we actually increased our class 3. So there's a low level class 3 and then there's a high level class 3. We're at a high level class 3. In fact, we met with our rep. We have the ability next year, we're going to review our department. We think we can get to a class 2. That's how close we are. What that does is that not only benefits us as a department, it benefits the entire town, the residents, the business owners, and so forth, because of the insurance rating that you have. So right now you need an 80. We're at 77.96. Actually, some of the things are out of our control, and we're trying to get those in our control. One of them is hydrants. MDC has to do a report for an ISO review. They have to have a minimum of a 5-year review prior to the actual ISO review. Some of the hydrants in the town haven't been flow tested since 2011. And we're actually pushing MDC right now to try to come up and help us with that. With that, that hurts us in a big, big way, because 50% of your ISO review is the fire department, 40% is the water supply, and 10% is actually the communications, which is the dispatch center and so forth. So when we start looking at, MDC not reporting, a half or 1 point difference, that gets you to the next level. So we're gonna push, and we're actually gonna get our state legislators involved to try to see if we can get MDC to push it. For the amount of money we pay for the town, through the town on a yearly basis, there's no reason why that can't be done. And it's just not Newington, it's the entire Hartford County area that they service. We talked to the ISO rep, she's having problems with everybody. If you go outside and you go, I think she said Aquarian is another water supplier, they're 100% on board, no problems whatsoever. And so the numbers increased for that one reason.
Oh, I didn't hear.
I think it's Aquarian, is what she said. There's a couple other ones, I don't remember the exact names of them, but next year, come July, we're gonna try to go for another review, and we're hoping to be to that next level, so that will help everybody in town.
If that happens, we'll be the only fire department in the state of Connecticut with a class 2 rating.
The only volunteer fire.
Volunteer.
There's no other volunteer department in the state of Connecticut that would be a class 2. So we're gonna try our hardest.
So we're
There's some
shooting
things
for
we
it.
need to do, but we're gonna push our hardest for it.
Weathersfield just had a study done. They paid a consultant to come in and study their fire department. And a lot of the recommendations that the consultant put on paper was to mirror Newington. So we should pat ourselves on the back for that. And we've reached out to Weathersfield to tell them, hey, we're here to help you. We'll do whatever we have for you. But it's to show that a lot of the towns have started to mirror their policies and procedures on Newington. We have the people coming in the front door to volunteer here. Other departments can't figure out why they're coming to Newington, but they're coming to us, and we're helping our neighboring towns as best as we can. The other thing too is, by helping our other towns, we're going to them a lot more often for fire calls than we ever were. So we're going out of town at least once or twice a week.
Yes, I don't know if anybody knows, we're part of Task Force 51, we call it. That's Weathersfield, Rocky Hill, Berlin, Cromwell, and us. So if there's a response, let's say Berlin has a big fire, they call the task force, we all respond out there as a group. It's a determined amount of men or women that go directly to the fire that they know are coming to help them. This way, they know if their manpower shortage, they're automatically coming. So if you see Task Force 51, that's what that actually means. But if you ever get a chance, I put the link on the top. If you can go onto the Google Drive, you can actually see what the consultant put for the entire Weathersfield Fire Department and everything that they listed for Newington. So it's in there.
We can skip that one. All right, now just, we figure since we're doing our trucks, we'll just give you a quick synopsis of our firehouses. So Company 1 on Main Street.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it?
The item on the agenda is vehicles. That's as far as we can go.
All right. So that's it.
Questions or comments, counselors?
Thank you.
I have a question.
Need the
I'm
clicker.
like, wait. I just have a question.
Almost made it to the door.
I just want to like reconfirm, so this Pierce, in the entire country, there's only one company that makes fire trucks?
No, but all the companies that are making the fire trucks currently, so there's really 4 biggies. You have Pierce, Emergency One, Seagrave, and Suppen. Those are the 4 like main players, you'd call it, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler. Everybody's the same way. Everybody's at 2 to 3 year waiting list. It's industry wide.
The only thing with a lot of manufacturers also, especially Sutphen and some of these other ones. And a lot, if you read in the paper, a lot of towns are doing this. They sign a contract, but they don't hold their price for the time period that they're building the truck. Pierce is actually holding the price for us. So no matter if it takes 3 years to build that truck, that price is locked at the time that you sign the piece of paper. Sutphen just recently did this to a town, and I can't remember exactly.
I believe it
where.
was Canton or somewhere out
I
there.
remember, but in the middle of just getting ready to deliver the truck, they actually gave them a supplemental bill of, $300,000-$400,000 because it was 2 to 3 years past that. The price increase of vehicles right now is anywhere from 15 to 25%. Just over the time period between steel, all the rest of the stuff that's put into these trucks. So that's the difficult part about now, the fluctuation. Look at your cars. I mean, back in the day, you had $40,000-$50,000 cars. Now they're $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 vehicles. That's the hard part about everything right now. So
The other thing about Pierce is we try to stick with one brand of fire truck for standardization over everything for training, firefighter safety, maintenance. If one operator can move from engine 1 to engine 2, being a volunteer fire department, you don't ever know who you're gonna get, and they're not totally always staffed, but we can move people around. And if everything is standardized, even placement of equipment and hose loads and stuff like that, it's safer for everybody, and they could be utilized at any station in town. That's the other big thing. And maintenance, a lot of the same maintenance stuff, everything on a fire truck is specialized or specialty equipment. It also helps out with the highway garage, so we don't have to have a whole bunch of different stuff to service the vehicles, work on them. I mean, there are some specialty stuff, and right now, I mean, you could be down a part for months. We call it galactic back order these days. You order a part and they can't even give us a date where you're gonna get stuff. So it's feasible to have everything the same.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Mankey?
Yeah, we just thank both the fire department and Mr. Hillman for providing this information. I think it's important to get a handle on how many vehicles we have, and I was surprised we have 145 vehicles. It seems like a whole lot of vehicles for. And I can barely insure 2 of them in my house, but we insure all these vehicles like through the town, right? We also insure the Board of Education vehicles.
They're on our policy, but they pay their section of it.
Because I believe during the budget deliberations, we also wanted to get an idea of what the board had for vehicles too, and I think.
I'm still waiting on
I
that
don't know
report
if
to come.
we got that. We asked for that I believe we asked for that during the board presentation of the budget, and that was back in March, I assume. We did that because that's what the book says, and we should, I think our goal is to look at all the vehicles that are under the town auspices. So I think we should try to get that information. Just, I think it's important to know what kind of vehicles we have out there, what their ages are and what the replacement is. I think it's if we ask for it, we should get it.
We will put that request out again. I know the finance director had followed up previously and hadn't heard back yet, so we'll touch base again tomorrow morning.
Okay, Counselor Page?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I appreciate all you've done tonight for the presentation, Mr. Hillman, as well. And we appreciate all you do to race towards the dangerous fires. And I thank you for the education on the age of the vehicles. I had no idea what the average age of all your different vehicles and different classes were. So thank you for that. And it seems like you're stewarding the resources well from the way you've presented tonight. It also scares me, as others have reflected on the price of the vehicles. That's crazy. That slide where you looked at projecting out what the build time is and all, and relative to the age, average age, or a specific age of any given unit, and how we need to be thinking about that, and how do we plan in 3, 4, 5, 6 years. It's a little scary, but it's a reality we have to contend with. So thank you for this. It was very informative. We appreciate all you do.
When I came in 1980, engine 1 was $56,000. Now it's $1 million.
Crazy. So just so that everybody's aware too, when we purchase a vehicle, we actually lease it for a 5-year period. So we're not, even though the funds have to be available, if you want to say, we pay a 5-year lease over that. So we're not paying $1.5 million first year or whatever it may be. It's spread out over a 5-year period. So yes, overall, that's the ticket at the end, but we pay it over time. So that's the one good thing about leasing vehicles. That's how we do it.
Takes the sting out of the little thing.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Couple questions. First of all, I wanted to thank you for the clarification, that truck that goes home with someone for a week. We got a couple of emails on that a while back. So I like that it was put back up there so that people can understand when they see that at someone's home, it's for a reason. It's there so that we have a better response, and there's a reason for that. So I was glad to hear that. And then in terms of the NFPA standards, is it strictly based on years, not mileage, not any other factors? It's
No.
strictly years?
Strictly
Just because like when I
years.
look at us and the number of calls versus like a New Britain,
Right.
it's such a
But
difference.
see, that's the thing with, you take a big department like New Britain or Hartford, they're putting tons of miles on their vehicle,
Right,
but they're also replacing them at about 12 years old.
okay,
So their engines in New Britain are going at about 12. I know Hartford does about 12, 11, 12 for
Anywhere from
the
10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years.
That's
So
the average for
that,
a
and at 12 years, the New Britain and Hartford, their trucks are,
yeah,
New Haven, they're just beat up.
okay, well, that makes, I mean, gotta ask the questions, right?
Yep.
And then in terms of take-home vehicles, how many take-home vehicles are there that
So
actually go
there's
home?
the one service vehicle for the on-call. And then the chief and the 4 deputies, that's it.
Okay,
And those, though, besides the chief's car, the 4 deputies, the assistant chief and 3 deputies are older police cars.
right, they get passed down,
That
and
are
patrol
passed
cars,
down.
you said, yeah.
Correct.
And are those for like carte blanche use, or are they just for calls, or what's the standard for those? The
Those are
take homes?
also for fire department use.
Okay,
So obviously, they give you going to a call and they stop at a store or something.
yeah,
But for the most part, it's fire department use. They use it for meetings. They're not able to, we call it the circle around the town. They can't take it out without permission from the board of fire commissioners outside of that.
Oh, okay.
And we do that for a reason, so that someone can't go out of state with a
Oh, yeah.
vehicle
Right.
without permission from them.
We do have a vehicle policy that we'd be more than happy to send to you that the commission
oh, okay.
voted on a few years back.
These are the questions we get, so we have to ask them.
And just one other thing, so when the deputies and the assistant chief got their vehicles, we used to get a gas allowance. The chief always had a vehicle, but the deputies and the assistant chief used to get a gas allowance. We gave up the gas allowance through the town manager to get the vehicles. So
Okay.
there was money going out already for fuel, this kind of offset that.
Okay,
So that's the
I
difference.
think that was approximately 2,500, 3,000 each.
I don't remember exact
Yeah.
numbers, but that was something.
historical information for us, because we don't know that.
It was
Town manager
2,500
checked.
a guy, and that got kicked back to the budget.
Okay,
So,
all right, thank you. Anybody else? Awesome, thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank
you.
Appreciate it.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we're moving on now. I can't believe it's 10 after 9 and we're at public participation. So any member of the public is welcome to come forward if you're in the room. Just state your name and address for the record. We do try to limit public comment to about 3 minutes, and there is a slide bar on the screen that will help you gauge that. Any member of the public who is on Zoom is able to let us know that they'd like to attend or be recognized by raising their hand in the participants window. Welcome.
Thank you, Council. Dennis Maycall, this is my wife Gina. We reside at 195 Camp Avenue. And we were here 15 months ago to present to you the problems we were having on camp. It's taken that long to get to this point, and I'm so happy that we finally agree that it has to be done. And we have to now, I guess, agree to which one of the proposals we're gonna take. Well, according to what I'm hearing today, and the safety issues all involved, the first 4 are out the window. So we're talking 5 and 6. And I just want to point out a few things that I'm reading here in the handouts and what was presented. The street was widened, which was shortened, narrowed on both sides of the street, not just one side. And so when we go to correct it, we should correct it on both sides. And if to find out how much it was narrowed, all you gotta do is look down Camp. Nothing's been changed in almost 40 years. You can look right down Camp Avenue, you can see the storm drains. They haven't been touched or moved in 40 years. And you can see on one of the pictures, you can clearly see how it's backed like this. That back of that storm drain was the original width of the street. So you can look down the south side, you see all this with the storm drains. That was the original width. No telephone poles were in the way when that street was fully white. So to mention that we might have to move a telephone pole, unless standards have been changed, how close they gotta be to the street now, I don't know why we have to even go there. On the north side of the street, he says, well, you can look at the storm drains and see that hasn't been moved. Those storm drains were added. There was never a storm drain from the top of camp down to Willard. There wasn't. So when they did the narrowing, they decided they needed one there. And it's connected to the storm drain on the south side of the street. So that looks like it's a brand new one. It's always been there. It hasn't. That's been added. So the street has been narrowed by almost 4 feet, maybe 3.5. But that's what we need for safety. We've been talking safety here all day today. This is as important to us in Camp Avenue as a brand new fire truck is that the fire department needs and the police cruiser need. It's just as important. The residents on Camp Avenue deserve to have a safe street and a street that's properly widened. If we are at 24 feet and that's not the standard, we should bring it at least up to the standard. I've been fighting for almost 40 years on this. And I'm just getting to the point now, I'm just so frustrated. It's taken so long. The town of Newington made this mistake. They narrowed it. And for what reason? Well, they tell us it's for control speed down the street. By narrowing it, though, they control it. That doesn't work. It never worked. They like the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit signs. They don't. And the parking on one side right now, no one does it. They still park there. You go down the street, they park there day and night. Those do not park signs don't mean nothing. And how much longer do we have to live with those no parking on our side? The other side, I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. It's time to get those signs down. It's not doing a bit of good. We need to correct this mistake. And the sooner the better. I get frustrated and I see the cost. I know it's expensive. I'm looking at number 4 here and the sheet, and it says it's $639,000. Up on the thing was 800. It was $200,000 more. I don't know if it was a mistake or somebody else is getting 200,000. I don't know. But it's different than what's presented to me here. So I just want you to look at that too and find out what's going on. But we need to do something. We need to do it soon. It's been a long, and everybody said we got to, I'm the one with the sprinkler system they're talking about. I have a sprinkler system in my house. I have no problem moving it. Now I got to move it at my expense. And I know the driveways come down there and they're very sharp. Well, we got to do ours too. That's whatever I have to do to make the street safer for everybody. That's what I'm here to argue for. I'm willing to do it. I think most of my neighbors are too. They're not worried about losing 2 foot of property. A lot of my neighbors say, geez, less lawn to mow. I have no problem. That's what they tell me. It's still fine. But most of them are in agreement that they like to have a street they can park on. I mean, there's someone down.
I do have to ask you to wrap up just because you're 2 minutes over.
So, just to say, they're all parking. We got single car driveways. There's no place for the kids to park all the cars in the family. They got to park on the street. There's a person on the street now who's got an RV. It's backed up against his house in the front yard, and it almost comes to the street. And he's not parking in the driveway; they're parking on the street. I mean, it is what it is. But we just hope that you really consider us for safety reasons and look at. I know the cost is higher, but what are the costs that narrow the street? They didn't have to do it. That's all. I appreciate it. And this let us know. We haven't heard anything, and the residents. We haven't had a letter. We haven't had nothing.
Thank you.
We're just. I'm sorry. She cut her off. She was here to correct me if I made a mistake.
No. I'm Janet Maycall and I live at 195 Camp Avenue. Also, we've lived there for 49 years. And so we have seen a lot, and we were there when the street was narrowed and it was 2 feet. It was 2 feet on each side, as my husband said. I know there's been discussion tonight about from the fire department, talking about, just listening to them about the fit of the fire engines and not fitting into different places. And we are dealing with the same thing on Camp Avenue, similarly. We need a better fit on Camp Avenue. We need a safer fit. And when it was narrowed, it was not made safer. That, as I said, 49 years ago, families that moved in, 1 or 2 cars. Today's families, we have multi-generations living in them. And we have lots more cars. When I was driving here tonight, there were at least 15 cars parked on one side of the street. And that's maybe a little bit more, 10 or 15 every single night. And Camp Avenue is a long street from Willard to Main Street. When we have, during the day, there aren't maybe quite so many, but there still are still lots of cars parked on the street. And when we're getting these vehicles, delivery vehicles coming, Amazon and construction vehicles that come, mail trucks, and they're parking on the other side of the street, we can barely drive through and we have that little grade on Camp Avenue. So you come up over a hill and you can't see. You're coming up, you can't see what's coming the other direction. You're actually driving on the other side of the road against the car that's coming towards you. So I really appreciate your time, letting us come and talk. This has been an issue that has really meant a lot to us and our neighbors. We have talked to practically every neighbor. I wish there were more here tonight, but we just found out about this meeting this afternoon, a couple of hours before we came. So that's why I had another meeting and I came a little bit later this evening. But I really appreciate it. And we appreciate your reaching out to our entire neighborhood. I mean, when the signs were going up, one side of the street parking signs were going up, the town manager was able to get a letter out within a few days, and then the signs went up. We appreciate a little more leeway to that if your decisions are going to be made, especially in the summer or in the next month or two. Summertime, people go away, but we've canvassed, surveyed our neighborhood several months ago, and at that time we can do it again and take another poll if we'd like. I don't mind going to knock on doors and talk to my neighbors, because I know this is an issue that's people have very strong feelings about. So thank you very much.
Thank you for paying attention to us and hopefully doing the right thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Counselors, there's no one online. Anyone else in the room that would like to come forward under public participation? Continue on with our agenda. Next item this evening, there was no email correspondence, so we're on to remarks by counselors on public participation. Hearing none, we'll continue on to old business. The first item this evening is the appointment of the auditor. We discussed this at our last meeting, and I believe Janet Murphy is on with us.
Coming on in just 1 second.
Good evening. As you can see, this is the annual appointment of the auditors we discussed before. It's the same firm that we've been using. And I don't know there's much more that I can add to that besides what we talked about previously.
Okay. Councilors would like to read the motion in force. Thank you, Councilor Menke.
Seeing as I chair the committee, and Councilor Page and I spent a long time working on this. Resolved. Per section 610 of the Newington Town Charter, the firm of Clifton Larson Allen LLP, formerly Bloom Shapiro, is hereby appointed as auditor of the town of Newington for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. That firm agrees to file complete report, to file a complete report on or before December 16th, 2023.
December.
December 15th, I'm sorry, December 15th. That's my good.
Seconded by
It's a weird.
Counselor Donahue. Any discussion on this one? Is your hand up just for reading the motion?
Yeah, sorry.
Just check.
Yeah, I was just trying to take it down.
Okay. All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item this evening is the budget transfers, which we did discuss a bit last meeting, and there is a motion in our packets. Jana, do you want to just quickly mention about these for us?
Sure. These were 3 projects we were kind of looking to supplement. This is the Senior Center Windows project. That one originally has a grant that we were given like 2 years ago. We went and got cost, and that's since then the costs have escalated hugely, along with having to do some asbestos removal. So we were moving different accounts around, mainly within salaries and some other CIP accounts to do that one. We've been talking a lot about road construction this evening. If you remember during budget time, the escalation in cost for that was also going to prevent us to be able to do all the miles that we had planned. So we were trying to put some more money towards that, to trying to make up Mr. Hillman originally had a price of approximately $600,000 that we could be short to do all the miles we need. And the last one is the highway parks and garages. We were closing up some of the CIP accounts to put that towards the other money that we're putting aside in CIP to start the planning and design work to get some really good solid numbers around replacing the highway and the parks garage.
All right. Any questions or comments, counselors? All right, we need to read this motion in. Deputy Mayor Vadraco.
Certification. In accordance with section 808 of the town charter, I hereby certify that there exists, free from encumbrances, in the following appropriations in the general, public building, and capital improvement funds, the amounts listed below. Account 10-191-8101, salary facilities, $50,000. Account 10-191-8308, heating fuel, $6,580. Account 10-197-8101, salary information tech, $130,000. Account 10-170-8101, salary town clerk, $45,000. Account 30-640-88-112, senior and disabled HVAC replacement, $28,420. Account 10-322-8101, salary highway, $30,000. Account 10-324-8102, overtime snow and ice, $70,000. Account 10-154-8224, local elderly tax relief program, $50,000. Account 10-120-8101, salary town manager, $50,000. Account 31-130-88-904, highway garage building upgrade, $10,668. Account 31-130-88-910, highway garage ADA compliance, $28,803. Account 30-329-88-729, highway garage HVAC, $36,937. Account 30-329-88-735, highway garage emergency repair, $904. Account 30-329-88-933, highway garage fire / secure alarm, $3,530. Account 30-831-88-725, park garage boiler, $17. By Janet Murphy, Director of Finance. Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby transfers the above certified funds in the general, public building, and capital improvement fund to the following accounts in the public building and capital improvement funds. Account 31-160-88-103, senior center window replacement, $260,000. Account 30-195-88-121, road reconstruction, $200,000. Account 31-110, 88-308, Highway and Parks Garages, $80,859.
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Nagel. Any further discussion? Counselor Page?
Thanks, Mayor. Just to clarify, can you comment, or anyone comment, or James, on the salary unencumbrances? How is that possible that we have monies of a significant amount designated for salaries, but they're unencumbered at this point?
I can tell you right off the bat, they are positions we haven't been able to fill. So for facilities, there was a position of the carpenter that has been vacant that we're just looking to fill right now. Information technology had 2 positions that they are still posting and looking to fill. And the town clerk salary one was James moving upstairs and us really not replacing him for a little while. And the last one being the town manager one, where we didn't actually fill the position for the assistant town manager. So these are all vacancies.
And we don't anticipate needing those monies.
This is in
Not
current
by-
year.
Yeah, not by the end of the year, no.
I got you. Okay, till the next fiscal year. Okay, thank you. That explains it. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item this evening is the ARPA funds allocation for the Clemlemere turf field. We had discussed this last time that there is currently $250,000 in the replacement reserve fund. There's a need for an additional $600,000, and we were looking to use the ARPA funds to do that. Especially because of the very short time period that Parks and Rec has to complete this work. This recommendation came forward before some of the other ones that will be coming forward, but this was one that we really needed to move quickly on in order to make sure that they have that window of time that they need to get it done. Is there anything else, Janet or James, that we need to add to that?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. Who would like to read this resolution? Yeah, you all raise your hand for the short ones. I see it.
I was gonna ask a question. Did you want to, Gail, did you want to amend this to put the not to exceed dollar amount in there?
Do you want to ask that question first before we read the resolution?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Counselor Donahue. The only thing I was wondering is, under the resolution, the dollar amount is not in there. And since we budgeted specifically, there's a big, not a big pot, but there's a pot of money for ARPA funds, but we only budget specifically 600,000. I think that it should be, the way that the resolution reads now just says, we can use ARPA funds, but I think we need to say up to 600,000. Yeah, not to exceed.
I will tell you, Gail, that we kind of followed the ones we did with the other ones. So since it was kind of attached to the presentations, we went with that. I don't think we put on any of the other ones dollar amounts. You can surely do it with this, but we were kind of saying consistent with all the other ones that we approved for ARPA funding.
I'm just not comfortable with the way that prices are escalating.
Totally understand, but just, that's why we fashioned it in this way. Because it was the same as all the other ones that we kind of did where there was no dollar amount. It just kind of followed with the presentation. But I don't disagree with you. I was just telling you why it was shown this way.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just start putting
So we
dollar
may be
amounts
looking to
on.
do that moving forward,
Yeah.
right?
I agree.
Okay. So would you like to read it and amend it to read as such?
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby endorses the use of American Rescue Plan Act ARPA funds for the replacement of the synthetic turf field at Clemlemere Park. These funds shall be up to, but not to exceed $600,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Menke. And discussion. Counselor Nagel? Did you want?
Fine.
Okay, your hand is up. All right. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is Board of Ed CIP transfer request on undesignated funds.
You'll remember this is a request by the Board of Ed. They do have the funds available in their CIP. They were undesignated, so they need them to be designated for the projects that they are hoping to complete, which you'll see in the memo, includes blacktop paving for 200,000 and the track tennis basketball surfaces for 100,000. Any discussion before we read the motion? Councilor Knox?
We talked about this earlier. They're gonna resurface the track around the field. And I had mentioned to Lou and to Dr. Brummett that the field needs to be redone too. Why would you spend money around the track when soon you'd have to repair the field or rebuild the field? You're wasting $100,000. And after talking to other people that are in this type of business, that they agreed. And I guess they didn't hear me. So, or look into it.
I know Lou is on the call. Do we want to pose that question to him?
I don't think Lou's here anymore.
No, he is.
He is.
Oh, he's in there.
I'm here.
Hi, Lou.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Hi, yeah, in responding to the comments a second ago, we did look into it with the track company and, you know, just speaking with the architect who has done some of these in the past. And we really are in a landlocked condition there right now where we cannot effectively make any changes to the track configuration because we're right up against the bleachers on the home side with no wiggle room to extend that width for ourselves, or being able to go the other direction because we're right up against the property line with the VA. And we don't have the ability to really restructure everything without, you know, some huge collateral issues that come with it. As part of the redesign of a track to support a different configuration, because one of the things asked for by the Parks and Rec division was seeing if we could make the field playing surface wider so they could get more soccer games in that are, you know, full. I think it's I want to say it's 200 wide compared to 180. Right now we can support, I believe, a 180 width field, and they would want to get it up to 200 feet width. And it's just not possible there without either filling in the hill, changing everything around with the field house to provide 20 feet of space coming toward the, going westward on the property to be able to redesign that. And then we would have a track that would not meet the 400 meter requirement because it would need to be shorter and wider compared to what it is right now, is very much of a rectangular shape. So we're boxed in from several different angles on this where we don't have the ability to really accomplish that. We did talk to the field turf company when they were out, and they're about resurfacing later for the taking the grass out and making it turf field. And they said because of looking at our as-built drawings and, you know, how we have our drainage set up, it would not be a major supplemental expenditure to do that. So they weren't worried at all about that approach to the project, you know, at the point in time where that could be affordable for us. So, you know, the condition of the track warranted, you know, if not immediate action, something in the very near future. And in order to lock in a contract for this construction season, you know, we didn't have an option to really affect change unless we had, you know, several $1 million at our disposal to try to do both concurrently.
One of the things I had asked, because you were talking about an 80% reimbursement on a couple other projects.
Correct.
What about this one?
Athletic fields, athletic resources for a school are typically only reimbursable at the time of original construction for that resource. So if we said for our high school, we never had a football program and we wanted to build a football stadium to do that, we would be able to get a reimbursement through the grant program because it's a resource the school never had. once it's been built out once and paid for once, they basically will not support anything in athletics for the next generation in the field. So that's all maintenance costs, and it's all on the districts to do that. So that's not a available resource.
You look at the schools and you rebuild as new. This is a field you rebuild as new also. So it's all how you
Well,
word
that's
it.
right, but the school has to be rebuilt as brand new for that to be considered. We're not at that point at the high school to do that. You know, that would be the type of project you have at Anna Reynolds where you're recertifying a 50-year life for the building, all the resources that are in it, all the major systems in the school. I would think that would be a $150 million project to do that.
Well, I was just talking about the field and you're going in a whole different direction, so.
Well, the fields go with the school. It would not be done independent of that.
Thank you, Lou.
Okay.
Any other council comment or question? Okay. Who would like to read this one in for us? Counselor Nagel?
Thank you. Certification in accordance with section 808 of the town charter. I hereby certify that there exists free from encumbrances in the following appropriations. In the school CIP fund, the amounts listed below. Account 3003, 4,999, school CIP fund balance $300,000. Janet Murphy, Director of Finance. Resolved that the town, Newington Town Council hereby transfers the above certified funds in the school CIP fund to the following account number 31,193, 8,758, /paving $200,000. Account number 3,193, 88,252, track/tennis/ basketball surfaces, account $100,000.
Motion's made. Is there a second? Second by Counselor Donahue. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next item this evening is fiscal year 2021 staffing for, not staffing, am I reading it wrong? Staffing for adequate fire and emergency response safer grant.
That's the name of the grant.
The staffing piece threw me, sorry. I'm like, it's not for staffing, sorry. So as you all know, the fire department is in receipt of a grant in the amount of $45,226. The request for the grant was for the purpose of an electronic sign. I can have one of you guys come up if you want to explain further. But essentially, our job as a council is this evening, we have a resolution before us to accept the grant funds. That's what we have to do on our end. And then there's also a separate motion to refer the project to 8-24 for town planning and zoning.
So the reason we applied for this grant was for recruitment and retention, also for emergency notifications for town citizens. The primary purpose of the sign is going to be, it has to be 70% recruitment and retention per the grant specifications, and then 30% could be used for emergency notifications. So we just want that to be known. So that's what this will be. It'll be in front of our main headquarters at Company One's. It'll be a double-sided sign. We're gonna put time restraints on it, so it'll turn off at certain times at night, so it doesn't bother the residents in the area. We can lower the, you know, how strong it is, the brightness and stuff like that. So we're gonna take all the, you know, residents into consideration when we put this sign up.
Council comment or question? Councilor Donahue?
Yeah, I had a thought that left the station without me, so.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Badrego? I'm just curious, I know in addition to the 824, there are zoning regulations in terms of electronic signs, and I mean, I know it's been a bone of contention in the past, but whatever, since you applied for the grant for the electronic sign, you got the grant. If in the and I can't imagine it happening, but if, for example, it did not get through zoning, would you be able to use those funds for some other kind of project?
So we've already reached out to Eric Hinckley in zoning, and he says town buildings are exempt from any of the zoning regulations. So we have reached out. If we need it in writing, obviously, he'll put it in writing, but we will go through the process just to make sure we're 100% on board with everything that we do. But we've already reached out to him.
Okay, thank you.
High school. High school did it too. Years ago.
Just town buildings are exempt from the zoning regulations.
But didn't they turn down the library for their sign?
They did. I was gonna say, while you can say that, we typically ask that projects go through that process regardless, just to make sure we're.
And we're still gonna do that, absolutely. We've already reached out and we'll go through the process, 100%.
About the new town hall here, there, in the very beginning, there was a discussion about having, and the committee said no, electronic signs.
Yeah, for
Just
town
something
hall,
to.
yeah.
That project.
All right, the motion that's in our packet this evening is to accept the funding. So who would like to read that in? Counselor Donahue?
Resolved, Newington Town Council hereby authorizes the acting town manager or his designee or successor to accept the fiscal year FY 2021 staffing for adequate fire and emergency response safer grant award for the Newington Volunteer Fire Department in the amount of $45,226 for the installation of a digital sign to assist with recruitment. A copy of the executed grant shall be attached to this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Menke. Any further discussion? I just wanted to say thank you to the department for continuing to reach out for grants, because I know this is not the first one you brought to us, that you guys have kind of been working a lot on getting funding in that way.
And we actually have two more actually in the process right now. So we're waiting for one, probably around September, we'll hear on that one.
Cool.
It's a grant for thermal imagers.
Oh.
And we actually are going through a grant process for a drone for the fire department also. Even though the police has one, we want it for use for fires and brush fires and stuff like that, so.
All right, well, it doesn't go unnoticed that you guys have been really putting a lot of effort into that. We appreciate that. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And then we have the second motion this evening, which is the 8-24 referral. Who would read that in? Counselor Donahue, sorry, he raised his hand first.
I defer to Dave if
All
Dave
right.
would like to read it.
Whatever.
We're all playing nice. Counselor Nagel, go ahead.
Resolved that the acting town manager is hereby authorized and directed to submit a proposal for the fire department digital sign project to the town plan and zoning commission for its report in accordance with section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Donahue, gotta give it to him. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We've got the grant and we've got the referral. We're all set. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, next item this evening is town manager search update. Counselor Menke.
I'll be quick, because I know we're getting close to 10 o'clock, your witching hour. Just to let you know that the council did review a number of resumes. We reviewed approximately 10 resumes. And then of those resumes, we had 5 people not come in, but on Zoom, we had Zoom interviews with 5 individuals that we wanted to talk to. And we did that over 2 days last week, Monday and Wednesday. And we narrowed it down to three candidates, which we're scheduling interviews in person. So the 3 candidates will come in person and be interviewed. So the process is moving along, and hopefully we get someone out of that. If not, we look at the ones we go from there again. So the process is moving along. That's all I have.
Okay. Any other council comment or question? Okay, we'll continue on. Next item this evening is resignations and appointments. We have before us an appointment for the Town Plan and Zoning Commission alternate position. Counselor Menke?
Resolved, the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointment. Town Planning and Zoning Commission, Michael J. Fox, alternate, 1901 Main Street, Party U, term 5/9/20 2023 to 11/30/2023. Replaces the resignation of T. Gill or Tom Gill.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Counselor Camillo. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We also have before us some council appointments to boards and commissions. I believe this is Counselor Page.
Thanks, Mayor.
Mhm.
Resolved that the Newington Town Council hereby makes the following appointments. Audit Committee, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term. Golf Town Committee, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term. Blight Ordinance Subcommittee, Kim Data, NTC member, 128 Cambria Avenue D, NTC term. Employee Insurance and Pension Benefits Committee, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue D, Party D, NTC term. Facilities Naming Subcommittee, Kim Rata, NTC member, 128 Cambria Avenue, Party D, term is NTC term. Indian Hill Country Club Committee, Carol Annis, NTC rep, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term. School Code Compliance Committee, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, term is NTC term. Standing Insurance Committee, named Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term. Town Hall Renovations, PBC, Permanent Building Commission, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term. And Youth Adult Council, Carol Annis, NTC member, 30 Harding Avenue, Party D, NTC term.
Second.
Second by Counselor Radic. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right. It's 9:49. We'll continue on. Approval of the minutes. Are there any exceptions to voting on these, or can we do them as one motion?
You may do them as one motion.
Yeah.
All right.
Motion.
Fabulous. And I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 18th, 2023 public hearing public hearing minutes for disabled over 65, April 18th, 2023 public hearing minutes for the exempt motor vehicles, April 18th, 2023 special meeting minutes, April 20th, 23 special meeting minutes, April 25th, 2023 regular meeting minutes, May 1st, 2023 special meeting minutes, and May 3rd, 2023 special meeting minutes.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Rada,
I'll second it then.
seconded by
ahead.
Counselor Menke.
With authority.
With
Any
authority.
discussion or corrections, counselors?
No, I read through them and they seem to be okay.
Wonderful. Thank you, Counselor Nagel. Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have lots of minutes. All right, next item is under new business. Board of Education, John Wallace Middle School Grant Application Authorization. And I'm going to turn this one over. Who's going to do this? Is this Lou? All right,
I'm here.
Lou, you're on.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi, I had sent a couple things that were developed today for the benefit of the group tonight to Mr. Kropinski earlier, and I am not sure they're going to be available at your either on screen or by paper copy for the meeting. I'm sorry.
They'll be available on screen. We haven't received a paper copy.
Okay, right. It just got finished at 5 o'clock today.
Oh, okay.
So
Which one did you want to start with? The John Wallace 346 renovation title, or did you want to start with the memorandum?
Well, as far as the scope of how this moves forward is last week at the Board of Ed meeting, or 2 weeks ago, the board approved the education specifications for this project. So that is step number one in kicking off a school grant application. Okay. In the activities now shift to the town council forum, where there are four resolutions, four motions that town council needs to do in order for us to get onto the list for consideration for the General Assembly in December. And that will allow us to file the grant application by the end of June. And then December 1st is when we'll know if the project advances to the General Assembly. So 3 of those motions have been the routine motions with all of the projects over the last 30 years, which is the establishment of a building committee for the project, the authorizing of the superintendent to file the grant application, and then authorizing the preparation of the plans and specifications for the job. So those were the routine ones. A couple years ago, they switched it on funding, where it is now required that you show up with your checkbook the day you file the grant application. So either the project, is been funded through a town council action as part of the budget adoption, or that the town council makes a representation that will be sent to the state with the June 30th application that says we are intending to do a referendum sometime in the next few months where we can certify the results prior to December 1st, so that the project, if it passes, can advance on to the General Assembly stage of this. So I had reviewed the draft materials that were in the package for the town councils. All those are just fine as far as how they're written. I don't see any technical defects with any of those. And it would be a matter that at the point in time the council is ready to move this forward, that can be scheduled on your agenda to do that. I know one of the other things we as the Board of Education wanted to provide the town council for this is a high degree of confidence in the cost estimates that are being presented as part of this project. And today we got our information back about 3 o'clock this afternoon, which basically came out just fine. Since we've been advancing the concept of this project, we were talking about a $10 million project to get this done. And the budget that was developed by an independent construction estimating group showed the number coming in for just construction at 6.7 million in today's dollars in 2023. We also have the alternate for the PCB abatement and masonry restoration for 350,000. In our initial design concept for the project, we were going to be avoiding any of the renovation work for the window systems, because we would set all the classroom dividing walls in basically an already constructed wall area. So that could be avoided as an expense on the project. But for purposes of building out the estimates, we wanted that included so the town council could have a full picture of what the cost structure is. So we're just slightly over $7 million of building costs for the project in today's dollars. Okay. Then the 2 major cost escalation and contingency numbers appear next. So there is about $2.4 million that is embedded in the estimate, which advances the cost the better part of 2 years, because this being done right now, we realistically won't be able to have the construction start till the spring of 2025 after it gets through General Assembly and all the other pertinent steps of the building project as far as design development, getting to be the point of being able to bid the project, et cetera. So you have 29% of the construction cost set aside as either escalation or change orders that would be occurring down the road. And since this is for the 3 individual wings at John Wallace, I had a very good benchmark model to work from when 8 years ago we did the STEM Academy over at Wallace. Prior to that, it was the Industrial Arts Wing, and that was just loaded with a unsuitable environment with which required a lot of abatement work and rebuilding the whole exterior skin of that wing. And I reviewed those project logs today, and for doing that particular wing, we only had a grand total of $200,000 of change orders for the whole project. So right now we have 1,200,000 and change for 3 wings. So that's 400,000 per wing. So we clearly have enough set aside. And the difficulty of the next 3 wings is going to be 20% of what it was for the first project. We will not have to tear down the walls. We can essentially avoid 95% of any, well, there are none of the abatement issues other than caulking in the window system that we have to deal with at some point in the future, not necessarily for this project. So I think we're very comfortable in the contingency area, for any risk of change orders down the road. So I see that as being, we're going to beat the budget comfortably there. In the professional fees, that is just estimated expenses based on, approximately 6.5% of the overall value of the project, which is, reasonable in today's market overall. That would cover your architect, your environmental company for their testing and any design work that's needed, the technical engineers who are involved, and material testing as necessary. Okay. We also added furniture and fixtures after our last discussion on this, where we put in an allowance of $15,000 per classroom for 29 rooms. We have not fully vetted that number yet, if that is all needed or half of that is needed, but we wanted to kind of set the outside limit of what the possibility would be for FF&E to redo the entire wing with all new furnishings that are there. The technology equipment for 80,000 is really just the audiovisual resources that we put in. Most of what we have in the wings right now is the result of a major project that was funded by the E-rate grant program 2 years ago, where the building is fully wired out to Cat 6 with all new contemporary wireless access points. So we're going to be able to reuse 80 to 90% of our existing resources of the equipment that's in place there right now. So we don't have a real big add in the technology area. And then we have the miscellaneous elements of permit fees, printing costs, things like that, which bring us to the $10,717,000 estimate. So from our initial starting point at $10 million, at $10.7 million with $2.5 million of that being contingency or escalation number, I think we're in a very good spot to be essentially right on the mark for the budget for this particular project as things unfold down the road. Okay. In the next couple of days, we'll be sending this out to the town councilors so they'd have full appreciation and see the backup work that went with this. Just that wasn't without giving you to in advance. It was we get immersed in a lot of details that wouldn't necessarily be productive for tonight's discussion. So before I move on, just stop right there. This is, as of right now, we're by the regulations of the state, this is a 57.14% reimbursement project. And there we are working towards seeing if we can secure somewhere up to an 80% reimbursement on this project. So we don't have any confirmations on that yet. And we probably won't until after the grant gets in the pipeline post June 30th. Okay. So
Lou, so that reimbursement rate would be able to be determined, or how set would it be prior to us going out to referendum?
for something better than 57.14?
Yeah, if you're not sure if it could be possibly higher or not, when would that be determined? That final number?
Dr. Brumman and I would have to speak to the legislatures who we've been working with on this to see what their timeline is. Don't have an answer for you on that right now.
Okay.
But I get one.
I'm just thinking in terms of, we have to start the referendum process in terms of our process, a few months earlier. So I'm just curious when we would know that, but that's fine.
Understood.
I have a question too.
All right, go ahead, Councilor Camillo.
Lou, when we had talked a few weeks ago, I'd mentioned windows with egress for security.
Yes.
That's in there?
The windows themselves with egress, the answer is not at this time. That would be part of the finalized design development work that would be done. That's something that Mike Morgan, as our security director, would have to speak to and try to build into the project if he wants that. I know that we have hardening attributes associated with our current windows right now, so I am not sure of his interest in switching that to something different right now. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou.
Deputy Mayor Badrejko?
Yeah, Lou, this is just to educate me. I hear the terms build as new, refurnish as new, or whatever, renovate as new, renovate, just plain over.
Sure.
So this 57.14 is based on just renovation or what?
No, there's several. I'll talk about the reimbursement rate first, and then I'll talk about the type of project.
Because I'm confused as how if you can possibly get it up to 80%. And if you can just explain that, yeah.
Okay, sure. Okay. All right. The 57.14% is an annual calculation that the state does based on several different factors, but the predominant piece of that is the equalized grand list per capita for a community. So if depending on whether our community's relative wealth improves and you get enough upward motion on this where you go from being ranked number 100 to being ranked 90, you would see the reimbursement rate on the grant go down. We've been at 57.14% for probably about 6-7 years now for projects that we've had. So we've been holding steady in the range of like 100 to 105 on the ranking that the state uses for the wealth of the community. So that number is set independently of anything else each year. So, and these are published out at the state website. So you can, see where we rank compared to everybody else and the primary reimbursement rate that's assigned. Okay. The second part is projects that potentially would be able to gather additional interest by the legislature and various legislators that would want to support to try to push the project through and help the communities achieve projects with specific goals or significant goals. Since this is a combination and really predominantly a security project to rebuild the 3 wings in a way which provides all the safety and security for the students, that really caught all of our local legislators' interest, and they expressed the willingness to go to bat for us to see if they could, make a better reimbursement rate available to us to create a better incentive to pursue this project on the part of the town. I know from the information they shared with us and what I could see on the state website, there were several other communities that were, in a different financial place than Newington and significantly better on the Anglic ratings that were able to get up to an 80% reimbursement for different projects. So that is going to be a matter of how it goes through the political process in the next couple of months and the commitments we can get people to, our legislators to make, or however they need to advance it for us to get where we need to go. So that's why I don't have the ability to answer the question and say this is a guarantee. But we've, the Board of Ed started by advancing the project, trying to build interest both at the community level and with the town council. Everybody has done their part so far to be thumbs up in support of this. I can't see how we would not get a really good look by our support of our local legislators to help this project do get something better than 57% in the end. But unfortunately, I just can't answer that question right now.
Okay, that explains it. Thank you.
Okay, right. So now the second part of it is the type of projects that are going on at the state. So they have a renovation project, which is what the John Wallace one is going to be, presuming it's funded and moves ahead. We have the Anna Reynolds project, which is a renovate as new project. And then they have roofs, they have code projects, and they would have building expansion projects that are there. And that one would be primarily for schools that need extra square footage for classrooms because of enrollment growth. Okay. The Renovate is New is the incentive program that the state created so that every old school doesn't get mothballed and just knocked down and you start all over again. You know, a lot of the schools have, good properties in town with good, general resources as a site, even though the building may be in need of significant renovations across a lot of areas. They assess the building and they ask for independent corroboration at that time to see if that building really has the ability to be revitalized with a 50-year useful life, where the state can count on them putting up money a second time for basically rebuilding the school instead of it's just lost money. We're throwing good money after bad, and the building is just going to isn't worth trying to fix because it'll cost twice as much to fix it up than it would be just to go out and build a new school. So the financial incentives as part of the Renovate as New projects are basically everything is potentially reimbursable, where in other projects there's traditionally a bunch of exclusions because the state's already paid for it once and they just make it very difficult and they keep chipping away at your reimbursement. So even though you have a 57.14% reimbursement on qualified expenses, maybe only 60% of the project is qualified. So your effective rate would only be about 35% of the project, where you have a true 57 on the Renovate as New, and basically all the dollars count toward it. The other projects have all a little bit different rule sets that are involved. But the big ones of renovations or Renovate as New means it's a full school building. You can't disregard part of school. We're only going to do the science wings. If that was what you're going to do, then that just becomes a regular renovation project. It doesn't qualify for the incentives of the Renovate as New. And it's designed to take a building that is at the end of its useful life and trying to see if you can bring it back to the start of its useful life for the community.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Very good.
Any other council comment or question? All right, we will move this to our next agenda for consideration of action. Lou, what is the timeline? If we had more questions or anything like that, what's our timeline for?
Well, I would hope that you could get this done at the latest by your first meeting in June. So if you're not ready at the next meeting, or there's more questions, or if the town council would like to go into more depth about some of these timeline schedules I provided as far as what our approach is, it'll be fine if we get it done by the second week of June. It's just I will need a couple weeks to put the whole package together and get there by June 29th this year, June 28th. To get accepted by the state.
All right, I think we're all set then. We'll move this to our next agenda for consideration. Thank you, Lou.
Okay, and thank you for your time and your consideration. This is a tremendous opportunity, and we'll do our best with this.
Absolutely, thank you.
right, thank you.
Appreciate the
All right,
thanks.
have a great evening, everybody. Okay,
You
bye-bye.
too. What's left of it.
Okay.
All right, next item this evening is written and oral communications from the town manager, Mr. Kropinski.
All right. So quick updates. I did mention this one at the last meeting, but as we're getting closer to it, we like to make sure the public's aware. We do have our shredding event taking place on the 20th. We have a lot of things going on the 20th. That'll be taking place in the parking lot adjacent to us in the police department from 9 to 12. I'm happy to report, I've got the final report, and our town engineer does start on May 22nd. Very happy to report that. As we discussed previously with the Newington Veterans Firefighter dedication, we will be scheduling that to coincide with their anniversary on May 20th as well. The signage should go up on either that Thursday or Friday. It will be covered and prepared for the unveiling. So we'll get more information out to everybody on timing for that. I did inform Commissioner DeMayo about that as they were leaving. So they are aware of it. And as soon as we have all the details worked out for you, we'll get that out to you. During our agenda setting last week, there was a request for a quick update on development in town. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. Currently 3333 is progressing quite well. There are a couple little setbacks they are currently having. They've got 2 of the 5 commercial buildings are close to completion. They have a fit out for the Shake Shack currently and 1 for a coffee shop from Louisiana. 2 foundations out of 3 are completed for the residential buildings with framing on 1 of the buildings, and work is taking place for the sewer work along Payne Road. At 227 Payne Road, which is 149 unit residential, the foundation and elevator towers are complete. So if anybody's been down there, they've moved that site along very quickly. Underground utilities and the slab will be completed pretty soon, and framing of the building will start shortly. 77-93 Payne Road, some may have heard about this. This is a new swim school. Permits were applied for on April 26th, and they're in the process of constructing an 1,100 square foot building housing their splash safe swim school with an additional 7,100 square feet of commercial space, and that approval was done by the TPZ in April. 712.
Where is that, James, exactly?
7-93 Payne Road.
Isn't that 11,000 square feet?
Between the 2 numbers, 11,170.
You were saying 1,100, that's why I was.
Oh, I'm sorry. 11,170 is the full building. 7,130 is the swim school, and they have an additional 4,040 with commercial space. 712, which is the hotel along Cedar Street. That's underway currently. They're working on the fittings, and half of the slab are complete. They're expected to have that finished by the end of this week, and framing will start shortly after that. So you'll see that go up very quickly. 550 Cedar Street, they are still continuing. They're moving along quite quickly on the buildings. Clubhouse is done. Building B are progressing along with rough construction. They've done their inspections, and insulation is currently taking place at that one, which was the old Dakota property. 731, 751 Russell Road. That's the car wash, gas station, EV showroom at the top of the hill. They've received a certificate of location approval for gasoline sales from TPZ, that's a statutory requirement. At this point, no building permits have been applied for. 68 Deming Street, which is a 18-lot residential subdivision. 5 lots are currently in process for the construction of those new homes. 1 is close to CO at this time. We've got a couple developments that are no plan submitted, but work is taking place on some of those sites that we've run into. So 15 Kitts Lane has some temporary fabric to reduce some light infiltration while the owner is working on that commercial site. So I've gotten questions about that. We've spoken to the owner on that property who is actively marketing it. They've been discussed on the plantings that they did take down, and the department is working with them to assist in their proposed development proposal. They've talked about 2 pads on that site. So instead of just the Bertucci's building, there's an additional space for another one. 16 Fen Road, the car wash, still working with the owner through MDC to finalize that sewer connection. That's why that one is still not open. And then last but not least, 67 Payne Road, that property recently transferred. That was the old Frank's Nursery. No inquiries about the site right now and no proposals, but we know something will be coming through. That is the same owner of the Bertucci site.
Oh.
So, let's see. I think that is everything I have for this evening.
Okay.
I know that's a little bit to take in, but I will send that form out to everybody so you can take a look at it.
Counselor Donahue?
Yeah, on the Dakota property?
Yes.
Are they preparing for, it looks like they're preparing for a center turn lane there?
They were required as part of their state permit to extend the roadway for safety. So yeah, they're doing some sort of a realignment piece with that.
Yeah, they start at 7 o'clock in the morning, which is balls up traffic unbelievably. Okay.
Trying to get that done in the quiet time before the traffic hits, and they've been working throughout the days.
All
We
right,
have
no,
received a
it
couple
looks
of
like a center
complaints.
turn lane.
Yeah.
On that,
Yes, you did. Yep.
Yep, we did get a complaint about that in terms of the timing of the construction and whatnot.
On Alumni Road?
Alumni Road, I'm just waiting on the sign off on the state permit. There was a small change that they had requested as part of it, and then they actually sent us a certificate for in a different town altogether. So they did make an update to that, so I'm just waiting to hear back from them. As soon as we get that verification that that's been signed, I will send that out.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, we'll continue on to council liaison committee reports. Counselor Nagel.
I have two committee reports to give. CROG met the day after the last council meeting. Fortunately, Matt Hart, the executive director, met before us and gave us a lot of information, which he again repeated the next day. So you can look back at our council minutes that we improved to see about that. Their meetings they plan on having them meet in the future in person at Riverfront Recapture Boathouse. They've been able to even start doing that because it's been flooded. There'll be an annual meeting on June 15th. They have every year for those involved. The library met yesterday. As you know, their race is May 20th, as Mr. Kropinski mentioned. They have consolidated their bank accounts from several different banks into one bank to be more streamlined.
Just Counselor Nagel, I think the race is on the 21st.
I'm sorry, the 21st.
Okay.
They have completed having schools visit the library, or they're going to the schools. They've started connections with summer programs with the town schools. The Zooming program that they have allows them to do closed captioning. There have been requests for that, so they are now doing closed captioning for any presentations that the public may want to see, and also all their board meetings. The Friends of the Library held a book sale recently and took in $13,500, which helps to run programs that the library does, aside from what they do within their constraints. There's been a slight snag in the reconstruction revision project that they're going to bring a lookbook to you. Unfortunately, one of the people who is in charge of the script for the lookbook coming to you has been seriously ill, and hopefully that will, the person is recovering, and hopefully they will present that to us. They're very concerned and want us to know more concrete details and options so that possibly it can go to referendum in the fall, if conceivable. There is as you know, a concert series by the Hanel family, Hanel. It's different from Parks and Rec. They have one in December, but they now have acquired a two-part program on July 17th and the 24th, 6:30 at the library. And it will comprise with different areas of music from the 60s and the 70s. And you can contact the library to find out about more details about that.
And they spoke a little bit about that last night on Talk to the Mayor, because Bill DeMail was on, and I guess this is someone that Bill knows, and the ukulele was involved.
Yes.
And they've been working in conjunction, the Parks and Rec and the library, on getting this concert going, and they were really excited about it.
And apparently Bill is an avid ukulele player.
Oh, they were also very excited about having their budget accepted, and are eager to get someone new on board to make that connection with the teen library and connection.
Oh, great.
Facilities, or rather programs for teens. So their whole program in connection with the schools is intact from kindergarten all the way through.
Perfect. Excellent. All right, Counselor Donahue.
NCTV, Thursday, we are hosting, say Damon Scott, it's not Damon Scott. one of the professors.
Darren Sweeney.
Darren Sweeney, thank you. Darren Sweeney, he's a professor at CCSU, and he teaches a video class. We are hosting them, and they're going to preview their show that they've done as a class project. So they're coming in, we'll have 6 or 7 students, and then we will re-air it on NCTV. And it just came about like, he reached out to Sandy and, it was like, so it's very exciting. We're hoping to get a couple of volunteers out of it, hoping they see the studio and go, wow, this is great, can we use it? And I think we're hoping it turns into an annual thing with his class. And,
Be a great partnership. Yeah.
and I don't think he's with Channel 30 anymore, though, so. Okay, maybe we can get some, publicity out there, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna play it by ear, but I'm even gonna wear long pants for the event, so.
That's serious business.
I'll get a picture.
That wasn't the same one where they were doing the iPhone video training, was that?
No.
No, different
No,
program.
this is at CCSU. The iPhone was at the library.
Okay.
We could all use that.
Counselor Retta?
I just want to add that, and I had to look it up because I couldn't remember the name, that on May 23rd, at the Chamber's annual meeting, Friends of the Lucy Robbins Wells Library are going to receive the Gail Whitney Service Award.
Oh, nice. And we have our police department receiving an award as well for is it the community police?
Stuck it up on my desk upstairs.
Oh, I should have, it's in an email.
Yeah, I'll have to go back to even more emails to look that one up.
I'm trying to remember I don't want to misspeak on what we're actually getting the award for.
The Public Safety Award, that's what it says here.
It is the Public Safety Award. Here it is.
The Police Community Council.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was looking for. The police community, it's Public Safety Award, but it's for the Police Community Council that our police department has. So that's why they're receiving it.
23rd at 5:30.
And unfortunately, we're not able to be there because that is a council night. So
I think it all starts at 5:30, so I know that they're gonna be, if I can't get there, some other folks from the Friends will be there.
Yep. All right, any other council liaison reports?
Nope.
All right, we'll continue on to public participation. There is no one in the room and there is no one online. So remarks by counselors.
I just want to say I will not be at the meeting in 2 weeks. I'll be traveling.
Oh, okay. I'll have a good trip. All right. And next is informational items. Counselor Nagel mentioned the annual Newington Library 5K Challenge road race. Karen Brenner was on the show last night for Talk to the Mayor and had mentioned this as well, but one of the new features that's pretty exciting is that this year they're doing a Little Readers Sprint. So children between ages 2 and 5, they're doing a race for them as well after the completion of the 5K. And if they have an adult with them that was already in the 5K, then the fee is waived. Otherwise, there's a small entry fee. But they were really excited to add that feature to this year's event. And they are also doing a paper, good, and personal hygiene products drive. So oftentimes we hear about food drives and that kind of thing, but to support the Newington Food Bank, they're asking for paper goods and personal hygiene products. There is a list on the library website of suggested items or things that would qualify. So they're just asking folks if they do attend to bring an item for donation if possible. And then the other item we have before us this evening is the Parks and Recreation upcoming events. There's a flyer regarding the concert series, Newington Goes Country on June 8th. Food Truck Friday on June 9th. Tethered hot air balloon rides are going to be offered on July 14th. So those are some of the upcoming events. And then I wanted to also mention for folks out there, we had Newington Children's Theater on last night again. And they were kind of promoting some of their upcoming events. And so I didn't get any into the packet, but if you want to check out nctcarts.org, they have a ton. I didn't realize how many shows they put on. It's so much. So I'm just been so impressed with, they've had some of their cast members on and
that one of their directors on, and they're high energy, and wow, the stuff that they do is pretty amazing. So
They're actually doing a murder mystery dinner.
dinner, right, murder mystery dinner, and then Shrek Junior was the other one they mentioned last night.
One that they're working on, but they weren't telling us.
And the murder mystery, they're doing a lunch and a dinner, just in case.
Whoa.
So if you don't want to do dinner, there's a lunch.
It's gonna be
too.
different both times because the audience gets to direct how it
Oh,
goes.
yeah. There's a lot of improv and audience participation in it. It was pretty impressive to hear them, so I figured I'd throw them out. A little plug to nctcarts.org. You can check out their stuff too.
Nice.
All right, next item is I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Camilla, seconded by Counselor Donahue. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye,
opposed?
aye.
We stand adjourned at 10:27 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Miss Rose, she didn't come on tonight.
Yeah, there you go.
Are we, we're not muted yet, so just